He said, I killed her and I deserved the death penalty for doing what I did to this young lady.
She was very friendly. She loved to be with her friends. She wanted to be part of anything that had energy.
The crime was one of the most brutal crimes that I've seen.
I never had a murder suspect, confess like that and ask for the death penalty and say it so many times.
Imagine living in a cozy small town where everyone knows each other, and suddenly a horrific murder happens in your community. Heather Steglian, a young woman with dreams of becoming a singer, became the victim of a brutal crime that shocked the entire community. Before we start, tell us in the comments where are you watching from and what time is it right now? And let us know, are you already subscribed? Or is there something we could improve to earn that subscription? We're working hard to make this the #1 true crime channel in the world, and your opinion truly matters to us. Heather Steglian's childhood and youth remain largely unexplored periods of her biography. In 1972, she came into the world in the rural areas of Pennsylvania. Her upbringing took place in a small community where residents maintained close relationships and were familiar with each other's lives. This social environment apparently fostered her openness and willingness to trust people. The performing arts magnetically attracted her from her teenage years. While still in school, she demonstrated bright artistic abilities and inexhaustible energy. Meanwhile, the family atmosphere was becoming complicated. 1990 was marked by a crisis in her parents' marriage. The breakdown of the relationship between her parents dealt a devastating blow to her mother Susan's mental state. That same year, she received her high school diploma and dreamed of realizing her creative aspirations on the professional stage. However, her mother's psychological crisis and the absence of other relatives capable of providing support forced Susan to convince her daughter to postpone leaving.
I had just gone through a divorce, and she promised to stay with me for a year until I got my legs. And when that year was up, she made her plans and she moved.
Heather had no intention of staying in her hometown area forever, but she promised to stay with her mother until her psychological stabilization. During this period, she got a job as a waitress to provide for her own needs and to help her mother as much as possible, especially emotionally. The recovery process after the divorce lasted about 12 months. Eventually, Susan announced that she could no longer limit her daughter with her presence, recognizing her desire for a bright future, and gave her consent to leave. Heather felt completely ready for independent life and wanted to fulfill her long-held dreams. So in September 1991, she set off for Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. In this large city, she planned to develop her vocal career. For creative self-realization, Myrtle Beach might not have seemed like the most optimal choice, but there were relatively more prospects here than in her hometown, plus her friends lived here, which influenced her decision. Despite predictable obstacles, 19-year-old Heather viewed South Carolina as a strategically important direction, optimal for launching a successful professional career. She rented a small place near the coast and got a job as a waitress at a restaurant to financially support the initial stage. She dedicated all her free hours to searching for opportunities to begin her stage career, specifically looking for auditions and show programs. But the entertainment industry turned out to be oversaturated with competitors, just like everywhere else. Heather couldn't achieve success quickly, which caused her deep dissatisfaction. After several months, she maintained unwavering determination to conquer the stage and realize her ambitions, but she faced uncompromising reality. It became clear that this would require significantly more time to establish. So the determined young woman was forced to work persistently. Now moral support became necessary for her, which she told her mother about in one of their regular phone conversations.
She wanted me to come down. She was feeling homesick and things were not going as well as she wanted it to go down there.
Naturally, the woman gladly performed all the actions her daughter needed and provided the necessary psychological help through phone contact, but she couldn't move there. Mother and daughter had previously maintained constant communication and extremely trusting relationships, and now their closeness deepened even more. However, After the next phone conversation that took place on November 4th, 1991, Heather stopped maintaining contact. Susan intensively tried to contact her, but this proved impossible. The woman assumed that her daughter might have fallen into a depressive state and stopped communicating with her surroundings, although such behavior had never been characteristic of her before. Susan understood that the girl was not alone, had sincere friends who shouldn't have left her in a difficult situation. In any case, she planned to visit soon, not knowing that at that time Heather's friends were facing similar problems. She was exceptionally communicative and active. The absence of any news from the girl for several days seemed unusual. Moreover, friends and girlfriends were also unable to contact her. After a week of silence, two friends couldn't wait any longer and decided to make sure of Heather's well-being. Driving past her rental home, they decided to visit their friend on November 11th, 1991. She hadn't responded to phone calls for almost 7 days. There was no response to knocking on the front door. This didn't seem sufficiently alarming since her vehicle was absent from the entrance. The friends knew that Heather wasn't supposed to appear at work that day. At the same time, they were aware of her difficulties, including financial instability. Therefore, Heather could have sold the car or simply driven away on it to handle business. The dwelling was locked, but one of the young men who arrived owned this apartment, so he had a key for access. As soon as they got inside, it became clear that something threatening had happened here. The room showed signs of violent confrontation, chaotically scattered objects and furniture, and moving further, they encountered a horrific discovery. In the living room on the floor lay the body of deceased Heather. The friends were stunned by what they witnessed and immediately notified law enforcement. Several police officers arrived at the small coastal apartment in Myrtle Beach who were struck by the level of cruelty of the perpetrator. At the epicenter of this chaos of scattered belongings, signs of struggle, and damaged furniture was the body of the deceased girl, which had suffered serious injuries. Judging by the condition, she had experienced severe physical violence and, probably, sexual violence. She received such a significant number of injuries that it wasn't immediately possible to determine exactly what means were used to torture her. Only the medical examiner was able to determine that Heather was killed using 3 different methods. She was killed, suffered stabs, and was eaten. In total, more than 40 separate injuries were recorded, several of which could have caused death. Some of the inflicted damage could have been done after the girl's death. The criminal clearly had no intention of leaving her any possibility for survival and seemed to derive pleasure from physical dominance. A kitchen towel was found in the victim's mouth. According to close friends, certain items were missing from Heather. Her wallet, which she constantly carried with her, was absent. The purse from which the wallet should have disappeared lay turned inside out on the floor. The camera, which the girl also regularly had with her, was not found. A television that was mounted on the wall was stolen. The car that was constantly parked in the parking lot in front of the residential complex was also missing. Usually thieves immediately shoot a victim who catches them unexpectedly and don't waste time on torture. All this didn't fit the standard pattern. Several indicators immediately became apparent that the deceased was acquainted with her killer. First, a pillow was carefully placed under her head. It remained strangely unsoiled, without bloodstains, so it seemed that the suspect placed it out of compassion or remorse for what was done. Second, they suspected rape or intimate contact had occurred by mutual consent based on the body's position. Somehow, all this escalated into brutal beating, but the reasons remained a mystery. Since no signs of break-in could be detected, it appeared that Heather allowed the killer to enter the apartment voluntarily. Obviously, she was acquainted with this person and trusted them. The first to fall under suspicion were the girl's friends and acquaintances, of whom quite a few had appeared in this city. She had a communicative personality and made new acquaintances within several months. All people from her social circle needed to be thoroughly checked. The 2 witnesses who notified law enforcement testified that Heather's circle of acquaintances had significantly expanded in recent months. There was a lot of work to study all possible involved persons. While the medical examiner performed the autopsy and recorded the injuries received by the victim, criminologists investigated the crime scene. The entire apartment resembled a scene from horror films. especially the room where the beating took place. Other rooms also contained traces, but these were left exclusively by the criminal. Apparently, after the murder, he thoroughly searched them, trying to find valuable items. Signs of cleaning were also discovered. The unknown person tried to eliminate the most obvious traces of his presence. Despite this, many of them were discovered and documented. He acted chaotically, carelessly. It seemed this could have been done by a drug addict while in an inadequate state. Primarily, criminologists were interested in the killer's biological traces, since he could have been injured while inflicting knife wounds. Unfortunately, DNA examination capabilities were limited at that time, and blood couldn't be collected. However, numerous fingerprints and footprints of the criminal were found. The most disturbing shoe print was found on the victim's clothing. This was indeed a bloody print of size 43. According to detectives, it was formed when the victim was pressed to the floor with a foot while inflicting blows. All objects used to inflict wounds couldn't be found. Only a metal lamp was found in the apartment, with which the girl received several blows before the household item shattered. She had numerous knife wounds, but her kitchen knives remained untouched. Near the body were white plastic fragments. They assumed these remained from another broken household appliance, but which one exactly remained unclear. It was also missing. According to the medical examiner, the third object used to beat the girl was an iron or something similar, heavy, with a metal flat surface. Additionally, Heather was killed with an electrical cable. Distinct marks remained on her neck. The medical examiner took swabs for analysis. It was determined that the deceased was not raped. No biological fluids were found. This confirmed the version that the killer was a person with mental problems or in an inadequate state, since the cruelty turned out to be excessive. For most detectives involved in the investigation, this case became the most horrific in all their years of work. Police reviewed photographs that the girl had taken with the stolen camera and managed to print. One might think she worked as a model. Probably. Many suitors always surrounded her, so it was worth paying attention to guys she dated after moving. Jealousy or painful breakup quite fit as a motive according to the nature of the crime. Detectives found it strange why Heather chose specifically Myrtle Beach to start her career. Here, the music and even modeling industry wasn't as developed as, for example, in Los Angeles or New York. There were fewer opportunities for self-realization. However, her mother Susan refuted these assumptions. First of all, Heather's choice was conditioned by the fact that it seemed easier to get established here. She could count on minimal support, unlike other, more popular places where she would have remained alone. Of course, for first steps in this industry, it's much simpler when there's someone to rely on. Additionally, South Carolina was significantly closer and safer than California. This was one of the key points, because Heather categorically didn't want to end her life path the way circumstances developed. The girl's mother regularly discussed future plans with her. She always planned to move forward. But she wanted to make Myrtle Beach the first step to success. As law enforcement officers suspected, within a couple of months after moving to South Carolina, Heather Steglian had many new acquaintances with guys. Now she communicated with friends, of all those girlfriends, and friends through whom she chose this place to move. Countless independent young men and women appeared with whom she managed to meet and become friends. Near the city was a military base, so the girl had many acquaintances among officers as well. They suspected a personal motive in hatred, so former boyfriend named Jack Norton became an obvious candidate. The deceased's mother told about him. The guy should have been considered first. The young man served at the armed forces base nearby. He had no criminal record. Everyone characterized him as a very positive, decent person, incapable of such cruelty. These words were confirmed by everyone who was well acquainted with the couple. Jack provided a convincing alibi. During the attack period, he was on duty in another country. This data was easily confirmed from several reliable sources immediately, so Jack was excluded from the list of suspects. The second suitable option turned out to be Heather's friend named Chris Harkins. Several friends from the victim's close circle immediately stated that the girl regularly communicated with him. As far as known, they didn't have romantic relationships, but the young man often passed through the city on business related to work. During this period, Chris always stayed at his friend's apartment. He was a longtime acquaintance. Both met even before moving to South Carolina. As detectives managed to determine, the relationship between them developed calmly. There were no conflicts. Moreover, they had a mutually beneficial nature because during such cohabitation periods, the young man took on part of the apartment payment. For Heather, this was significant financial help. As it was for Christopher, such cooperation was economical compared to hotels. The guy had no motive for the crime. Besides, Chris also had a reliable alibi, and he was crossed off the list of suspects. Communicating with the deceased's mother, police learned about Robert Dolan. The man was significantly older than the deceased. He behaved inappropriately toward her. At the time of investigation, he was a captain in the armed forces and a married man. About a week before her last call to her mother, Heather complained to the woman that she had ended up at a party where Robert Dolan was also present. According to her, she got very drunk that day and suspected the man of possibly harming her while she was unconscious. This could have seemed like a serious motive.
She did tell me that she thought that she had been raped by one of the husbands of one of the guests there while she was passed out.
Heather was going to file a complaint against him with police, and this threatened him with serious problems. The motive for eliminating Heather could have been the threat of revealing compromising information about Robert, which would inevitably destroy his military career and family life. Investigators immediately paid attention to several incomprehensible circumstances. How did a girl who had barely turned 19 end up at an event with experienced military personnel, including even captains? This situation looked especially strange, considering the presence not only of officers, but also their wives. It remains unclear how military spouses could tolerate the events that Heather described. No official appeals to law enforcement were received after that evening, making it impossible to confirm these assumptions. During interrogation, Robert Dolan categorically denied both participation in the murder and any improper actions toward Heather during the party. He explained all accusations as ordinary misunderstanding, and his wife, who was nearby that evening, supported all his statements. The captain was finally excluded from the circle of suspects after fingerprint examination and thorough alibi verification. At the time of the murder, the man was performing official duties. Soon, the investigators' attention was drawn to a statement from an antique shop owner that required detailed consideration. The merchant reported visits from an unusual customer whose behavior aroused serious suspicions. The visitor demonstrated nervousness and offered to sell a camera, but the antique dealer declined the deal, wondering about the item's origin and suspecting that the client was under the influence of drugs. The merchant's intuition didn't fail. This very appeal became key in establishing the criminal's identity. Having received refusal, the stranger became furious, but mention of possibly calling police forced the aggressive client to calm down, and he left the establishment searching for another place to sell. Leaving the territory, the perpetrator didn't notice how the seller came outside and recorded his vehicle's license plate number. Turning to police, the witness provided a detailed description of the suspect. The compiled photo fit depicted a Caucasian man with dark hair aged from 35 to 40 years. Detectives' main hopes were connected with the deceased's car, which disappeared without a trace. Heather drove a 1980 Chevrolet Monza. At the time of theft, the car was 11 years old. Patrol services received detailed information to search for the vehicle. Investigators hoped that the murdered woman's transport would become the shortest path to solving the case, and their expectations were justified. After several days, a similar car was found in Florida, which is one state away from Myrtle Beach where the crime occurred. The first reason for stopping was a traffic violation committed by the driver. He was forced to stop for inspection. During ownership verification, it was discovered that the Chevrolet was registered in the name of murdered Heather Steglian. The car was driven by 38-year-old James Whipple, whose appearance matched the antique merchant's description. The man was arrested. Heather's car underwent comprehensive examination. Inside the cabin, criminologists found multiple pieces of evidence. Among them were fragments of plastic material, as well as part of an iron sole that was the murder weapon, with blood remains. Similar plastic fragments were found near the body in the dwelling. Additionally, in the car's trunk was a wooden base Comparing it with the table lamp used to strike Heather, experts established that the stand was stolen from the crime scene and belonged to this very object. In the glove compartment lay a deformed, serrated knife. Its characteristics were compared with traces of the piercing cutting weapon found on the victim's neck. Damage remained on Heather's body that perfectly matched the distance between notches on the blade. Size 43 shoe prints recorded on the floor, and the deceased's body exactly corresponded to the bloody clothing and boots that the criminal transported in the trunk. After comparing treads, experts confirmed complete match of traces with prints on the victim's body. The reasons why James kept all these incriminating evidence with him became clear after conducting a conversation with him. Despite convincing evidence, specialists decided to reconstruct fragments of the broken iron. White fragments were glued together, recreating the original housing shape like a puzzle. The reconstruction perfectly matched other parts of the household appliance. James made no attempts to deny his involvement. The man immediately confessed to the murder. He was delivered to Myrtle Beach for further investigation. From the first day, the suspect demonstrated readiness to cooperate with law enforcement and didn't refuse his given testimony. He constantly emphasized his own guilt in the committed crime. The man repeatedly confirmed the fact of Heather's murder, explaining his actions by drug addiction. His statements had the character of warnings. James repeated similar assertions to all interlocutors. Some of his statements acquired the character of aphorisms. James assumed that the girl might have savings since she worked and set aside money to achieve her dream. He knew about Heather's desire to become a singer. He expected to find something valuable in the apartment. The man planned to commit robbery to purchase another portion of prohibited substances. When the next sum of money was spent, unfortunately for Heather, her name was the first to come to his mind at that critical moment, which became a death sentence for the girl. The criminal simply appeared at her place without warning, pretending that he was looking for their mutual acquaintance and asking for help. Heather let him in through natural kindness. She didn't sense danger and paid for her trustfulness with her life. For some time, they talked about their mutual friend through whom they met. The uninvited guest supposedly was searching for him, but all this was ordinary deception to lull the victim's vigilance. As soon as a convenient opportunity appeared, James grabbed the iron and struck Heather several blows to the head. The girl fell. He took a knife, with which he struck with such force that he even bent the blade. Then he used the lamp, after which he strangled her with a cord to make sure of the victim's death. The outbreak of extraordinary cruelty resulted from his inadequate state before coming to the victim. He had used drugs, so he couldn't control his behavior. After the murder, James took everything valuable he found in the dwelling, loaded it into the car, and drove away. However, the next day, the suspect returned to the crime scene, using the stolen key. He penetrated inside and tried to destroy his traces. However, he was again under the influence of drugs, so he acted unsystematically and left even more evidence. Having completed his actions, the suspect felt pity for the girl, so he carefully placed a pillow under her head. After full confession, James Whipple demanded that the prosecutor's office petition for assigning him the most severe punishment. He insisted that he deeply regretted what was done, but this wouldn't help resurrect Heather. So the only thing he deserved was the highest measure of punishment. Not everyone who knew the man well was shocked by his act. According to testimonies of James's relatives, he had long suffered from severe drug addiction, had problems controlling aggression, which caused countless difficulties in his life. These difficulties included the breakdown of marital relations, loss of contact with his own children, and deprivation of all real estate and movable property he previously owned. Most of the items stolen from the victim's dwelling were found in his vehicle, as well as in the hotel room where the killer occasionally lived. He had already tried to sell some of these items. Immediately after committing the murder, James drove 40 kilometers from the settlement and approached an antique shop owner, wishing to sell Heather's camera for a higher price than pawn shops could offer. Later, the merchant learned about the tragedy from news reports and filed a complaint with law enforcement. This information became useful only later, since at that time the girl's death was not yet known. Subsequently, this allowed identifying James Whipple. The witness's testimony, the car's license plate number, and the compiled portrait were among the key evidence in the case against the killer. During the week needed to search for the criminal, he moved across the state border but never got rid of the incriminating material evidence that was in the car. All this was also explained by prolonged stay under the influence of prohibited substances. The arrest took place on November 14, 1991. By reaching 38 years of age, James Whipple had criminal proceedings in 4 states. He committed a significant number of offenses. Mainly, these were break-ins for theft, driving under the influence of alcohol, and petty hooliganism. Heather's murder became the most serious among all his crimes. Now he resembled a disappointed man who simply couldn't overcome his harmful habit. According to his own stories and testimonies of those around him, he began using heavy prohibited substances after their mass distribution in the 80s. In 1994, court hearings began. James Whipple was accused of first-degree murder, armed robbery, car theft, as well as a whole series of other less serious offenses. Against the background of his full confession, denying guilt would have been senseless, but he didn't try to do this either. During the trial, the defense attorney persistently fought to preserve his client's life. In particular, on August 25, 1993, mitigating circumstances were presented that testified that in the past, James had been subjected to physical and sexual abuse. However, this didn't change the decision. The jury found him guilty and proposed imposing the death sentence. The judge supported this decision, but the case didn't end there. 7 years passed, which James spent in the death row section. The defense attorney constantly filed appeals trying to review the court's verdict. The lawyer managed to achieve a repeat review of the case. The judge at these hearings overturned the highest measure of punishment. The basis was that James didn't commit sexual violence against his victim, and at the primary hearings this wasn't properly explained to the jury. Therefore, some of them could perceive this as an aggravating circumstance. Such criminal proceedings are traditionally slowly reviewed by judicial instances. The same happened in James Whipple's case. This allowed concluding an agreement between defense and prosecution in July 2003. In exchange for James's refusal of the possibility of parole, the prosecutor's office no longer planned to demand the most severe punishment for him. Currently, the criminal is sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of early release. At that time, he turned 50 years old. In his final statement, James reported that he feels terrible feelings about the committed attack and murder. He agreed that he fully deserved the assigned punishment. He declared that he regretted the suffering he caused Heather's family. The girl's mother listened to this with tears in her eyes. The woman was present at every stage of court hearings throughout all these years, as was the deceased's father. But at the final stage, the man couldn't appear. Later, he gave an interview to journalists and stated that all moments of this trial became real hell. Now, he was satisfied that his daughter's death didn't go unpunished, and the family could finally find peace. The murdered girl's mother and father said they couldn't forgive James, but they no longer felt hatred toward him, since this takes too much energy and prevents living further. It's known that until the last moment, James insisted that he deserved the highest measure of punishment. But the defense attorney believed this should be avoided. Probably, this is exactly what saved him from execution. The moral of this story is simple. We never know who is really around us. Even a calm smile can hide danger. But tragedies never happen suddenly. They begin with small things that someone noticed, but remained silent about. To prevent this from happening, pay attention to alarming signals. If you see emotional violence, isolation, sudden behavior change, aggression, don't ignore it. If you feel fear, anxiety, or aren't sure what's happening, don't remain alone. Call a support hotline. Specialists work there who will listen and help. In the United States, the National Domestic Violence Hotline operates 1-800-799-7233. You can also send a text message with the word START to 88788. If there's a direct threat to life, call 911. One call can save a life, and maybe not just yours. Thank you for not being on the Detective Brooks channel, but since you're here, it means you're ready to see the truth and maybe help change someone's life. Joe Bischoff could never have predicted that watching his girlfriend Katie Sepich leave a party in the early morning hours of August 31st, 2003, would be the last time he'd see her alive. The next day, Hunter stumbled upon her mutilated body. The young woman had been brutally and burned. Nearly 2 decades later, Katie Sepich's murder still shocks people with its cruelty and senselessness. However, this tragedy became a turning point in criminal justice. The case led to legislative changes that significantly enhanced many American states' capabilities in fighting violent crimes. But before we begin, please tell us where you're from, what's the weather like there right now, and what time it is. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, let us know, what do we have to do to earn your subscription? The city of Las Cruces in southern New Mexico is renowned for its picturesque landscapes and rich cultural history. This unique combination of open space, friendly residents, and peaceful pace of life is mentioned just as often as the excellent Mexican cuisine. Las Cruces has a relatively small population, and the city itself can be quickly traversed from edge to edge. Here, residents know each other well, and tranquility usually prevails. However, this changes in the fall when 25,000 students return to campus. At the heart of Las Cruces sits New Mexico State University, an institution where many students take their first steps into adult life. This educational establishment has a reputation not only for high-quality education, but also for helping its graduates determine their life paths. When Katie Sepich informed her parents about her decision to study at this university, they felt tremendous joy for her. During her college years, she met Joe Bischoff, a charming young man studying biochemistry. An instant mutual attraction sparked between the young people, and they began a romantic relationship. For Katie, Joe became the person with whom she dreamed of sharing a future. After several months of living together, Katie realized that their shared future could become reality, not just a dream. Joe gave her a diamond ring, which made her incredibly happy. Katie Sepich, a 22-year-old student who was finishing her university studies, saw countless possibilities ahead of her. Her relationship with Joe was growing stronger, and she was convinced that everything was working out for the best. But the summer of 2003 brought changes to Joe and Katie's lives. Katie decided to stay and continue her studies at the University of New Mexico, while Joe returned to his hometown and joined the family business. He settled in Gallup, while Katie remained in Las Cruces. The young woman was deeply troubled by his departure. The separation became a difficult trial for her. However, they tried to meet whenever possible, as happened during the Labor Day weekend of 2003. Joe arrived in Las Cruces for the weekend, which delighted Katie tremendously. However, these days spent together ended in tragedy. Everyone was eagerly anticipating this special evening. Katie and Joe planned to go to a party right after Katie finished her shift at the restaurant. Her friend and colleague Veronica Cordova was also preparing for this memorable occasion. When the workday ended, they returned home, changed clothes, and hurried to the party. As usually happens with student events, the festivities continued until late into the night. The next morning, Jayan Sepich received a phone call that would forever change her existence. Katie's roommate was calling. She asked if Jayan had seen her daughter Katie. When the woman answered negatively, the girl informed her that they couldn't find her. She then explained that Katie had left the party during the night. Both her roommates, her boyfriend Joe, and most of the other young people present had fallen asleep right at the event location. No one suspected that the girl wouldn't appear at home the next morning. Katie's roommate told Jayan that they had called all the medical facilities, hoping to find her there, but without success. An hour later, the girl's roommate contacted law enforcement with a missing person report. Later, Jayan recalled that even then she felt something terrible had happened. Captain Robert Jones had over 20 years of experience in police work. In 2003, he was planning to retire. But on Sunday, August 31st, when hunters made a shocking discovery, thoughts of well-deserved rest took a back seat. A woman's body was found at the site of an old landfill. No identification documents were found near it. Everyone who arrived at the scene reached the same conclusion. This was not an accident. The girl lay face down on the ground, virtually without clothing, without underwear, and her jeans were between her legs. Everything indicated that she had become a victim of sexual assault. It was also clear that the young woman had fought for her life until the very last moment. She had resisted her killer, as evidenced by numerous wounds and skin under her fingernails. Initially, the cause of death was determined to be strangulation. However, investigators doubted this, as there were no signs of struggle in the surrounding area. They concluded that the murder had taken place elsewhere. Horrific burns were discovered on the young woman's back and arms. This indicated that the killer had attempted to destroy the body. Investigators suspected that gasoline had been used to eliminate evidence. The police department immediately established a connection between Katie Sepich's disappearance and the discovery of the young woman's body. After all, just 2 hours earlier, police had received a report about Katie's disappearance. The girl's father urgently arrived at the morgue to identify his daughter's body. Despite severe emotional stress, he was able to identify his daughter. For the Sepich family, true horror began. They were determined not to stop until Katie's killer was punished. They needed to determine who committed this crime and what the motives were. The missing person case was reclassified as an intentional homicide case, and law enforcement had to act quickly. An unidentified criminal had taken the life of a 22-year-old innocent girl, and there was a threat of similar acts being repeated. Las Cruces in New Mexico is a city that basks in sunshine 355 days a year. However, during these days, dark clouds hung over the college town. News of the murder of 22-year-old Katie Sepich instantly spread throughout the city, and an anxious atmosphere prevailed in what was once a bright place. In cities like Las Cruces, such tragic events occur extremely rarely. The mood at the university changed dramatically, and residents felt fear. They began asking questions about what time they could go out, who was around them, who was ensuring their safety. Law enforcement understood the validity of students' concerns. When such murders occur, there's always a risk of repetition. Tension reached a critical point. To defuse the situation, action needed to be taken. Police had to ensure protection for those who couldn't protect themselves. Detective Mike Myers, together with Police Captain Robert Jones, began investigating Katie's case. They started by analyzing information obtained from roommates and the girl's boyfriend, Joe Bischoff. According to Joe's testimony, they had arrived at the party together with Katie, and then she suddenly disappeared. He suggested that she had gone home. The distance from the event location to Katie's residence was slightly more than a kilometer, and investigators began studying her possible route. They weren't certain whether she had made it home. Therefore, they checked every residence along the way and interviewed all inhabitants. However, no one had seen or heard anything. It was an ordinary quiet night. The bedroom window was closed, but the screen wasn't in its usual place. It stood next to the building. Perhaps the criminal had removed the screen during an attempt to break into the residence. However, investigators had a different version of events. Joe reported that Katie had left her purse with keys and mobile phone at the party. The only way to get into the house was through the window. They hypothesized that Katie was attacked while trying to get into her own residence. Near the house, detectives also found Katie's shoes. One shoe lay closer to the bushes, and the other closer to the window, as if someone had rushed toward her. The final discovery definitively confirmed this version. Signs of struggle on the gravel surface in front of the house. Since gravel particles were found on the girl's body, detectives were convinced that she had been kidnapped right by her residence. They concluded that the killer had immediately transported her body to the landfill to conceal evidence of the crime. Then the question arose, was this a stranger or someone from her circle? Detectives assumed that someone present at the party could have observed her departure and path home. This person could have followed her and possibly killed her. Investigators decided to interview all participants of that party. After conversations with several young people who were at the event, detectives finally learned about an important detail of that night that Joe hadn't told them. It turned out that Katie had seen Joe kissing another girl, which led to a conflict. No one wanted them to fight, as it could have ruined the party. Therefore, Katie decided to go home. However, Joe hadn't informed law enforcement or Katie's mother about this. All of this was shocking, but then additional details emerged. It turned out that Joe had followed Katie to ensure her safety. He claimed that he had driven to her house but hadn't gone inside. Then the detective had a new question. Why hadn't he approached and knocked on the door? Why hadn't he made sure she was safe? This wasn't typical concern of a boyfriend for his girlfriend. Joe was absent from the party during the kidnapping. Moreover, when he returned, a suspicious event occurred. Several witnesses reported that Katie's mobile phone rang in her purse, and Joe pulled it out. He knew it was her device, but continued calling this number until morning, until Katie's body was discovered. He was calling a device that was in his own hands. Police suspected that he was trying to create an alibi. He wanted to appear concerned about his beloved, but instead only aroused suspicion. Now Joe had to provide explanations. However, after the first interrogation, he shut down and refused further communication with law enforcement. This became another blow for Katie's mother. She couldn't understand why a person who had been so close to her daughter didn't want to help with the investigation. Joe wasn't the most pleasant personality, but could he have committed murder? Often such crimes occur in moments of anger, and many believe that Joe had killed Katie. Checking his involvement would be straightforward. In a few days, DNA analysis results of the criminal would be available. Forensic scientists collected biological material for research from 3 areas on Katie's body. The analysis demonstrated that this was DNA from one person. The largest amount of material was found under her fingernails. This was skin from the person she had fought with. Now it was necessary to compare Joe's DNA with the DNA found on Katie's body. First, Joe had left town. Second, his lawyer was making maximum efforts to hinder police work. But then, Joe surprised detectives even more. He refused to take a DNA test. Since Joe declined the DNA analysis proposal, police had to seek other legal methods to conduct it. Detectives were forced to consider alternative versions of events as well. They began researching cases related to attempted sexual assault. They also made federal-level inquiries to search for similar crimes. Investigators compared the killer's DNA from Katie's case with DNA analysis results from other unsolved cases. However, unfortunately, no matches were found. At such large parties, there's always a significant number of potential suspects. On the very first day, detectives tried to contact each of the young people who had scattered throughout the state. One by one, they established the identities of all the men who had been present at that party. People were eager to cooperate with the police. No one refused to collaborate. The detectives asked them to submit DNA samples, and everyone agreed. All the evidence pointed to one person, and it wasn't just the police who thought so. Many people were convinced that Joe had committed this crime. He and Katie had argued, and in the middle of the night, she left the party. He followed her, and there they argued again. Unable to contain his rage, he killed her and hid the body. That was the version people believed. After Joe refused to provide DNA samples, the police were forced to act. The detectives knew that Joe and Katie had been intimate before the party. They decided to search the girl's room. They sent the bedsheet to the laboratory, hoping that Joe's DNA samples had been preserved on it. The police eagerly awaited the results. But when they came back, it turned out that the male DNA on Katie's bedsheet didn't match the DNA found at the crime scene. This made the detectives realize that Joe couldn't have been the killer. However, they were obligated to check all versions once more. They sent the results to Joe's lawyer, and the young man finally agreed to provide a DNA sample. Within a few days, the results were ready. Joe Bishop turned out to be innocent. The reason for his refusal to give DNA samples was the sexual encounter with Katie that evening. He was afraid that his DNA might be found on her body. But Joe's behavior on the night of the murder remained a mystery to both the police and the girl's parents. The detectives thought it would take 2 weeks to obtain his DNA. However, unfortunately, the process dragged on for several months. Joe found himself under suspicion, and the police had to look for other theories. Now, the detectives were certain that this attack hadn't been planned in advance. They understood that Katie's killer could have been anyone. However, something else was troubling them. They suspected that this could be a serial killer or someone who was just trying to become one, and the desire to solve this case was incredibly strong. They were doing everything possible to achieve their goal. On the night of the murder, Katie was wearing a ring on her hand that Joe had bought for her. Many witnesses confirmed that they had seen this ring on her during the party. But when the forensic experts examined the body, they didn't find it. Where had Katie's ring and other jewelry disappeared to? The killer might have taken the diamonds as a trophy to later pawn them and make money. In that case, the engagement ring should have surfaced in the city's pawn shops. However, when the detectives checked all the city's pawn shops, it wasn't there. The investigation had reached another dead end, but the police had other leads as well. They studied the area where Katie's body had been found and discovered tire tread marks on the ground. These tracks brought the police one step closer to solving the identity of the killer. The detectives determined the brand and company that manufactured these tires. The manufacturer informed them that such wheels are typically installed on pickup trucks. And then they understood which direction they should search in. The detectives managed to move forward a little. They gathered information about all traffic violations recorded that night and the following Sunday. However, among these vehicles, there were no pickup trucks, which disappointed them. It's important to understand that there are millions of pickup trucks on the roads, and they were looking for a needle in a haystack. They didn't even know if the killer was a local resident or just passing through. As a result, the case reached another dead end. Almost a year after Katie was killed, the detectives learned that a similar crime had occurred in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So similar that the Green Bay police immediately contacted the New Mexico department. The girl had been beaten, raped, and set on fire. However, there was one important difference that could significantly speed up the investigation. The victim was alive. If the Green Bay detectives could solve this case, perhaps the investigation into Katie's murder would also move forward. The attacks in Green Bay and Las Cruces seemed completely different at first glance. However, the police officers managed to find common features. Both girls had become victims of beating, rape, and arson. When the Green Bay incident became known, people immediately started talking about a serial killer. Initially, it was assumed that this was a murder following a quarrel between a boyfriend and girlfriend. But now it became obvious that this was the work of a serial criminal who was traveling across the country. Residents from Las Cruces to Wisconsin began to fear going outside. But fortunately, the Green Bay detectives had a chance to solve this case. It turned out that the victim of the attack was alive. The girl had managed to pretend to be dead, and when the car drove away, she extinguished the fire and called for help. According to the victim, she was attacked by 2 Latino men, and this fundamentally changed the course of the investigation. Although Detective Myers was convinced that only one person was guilty in Katie's case, no one ruled out the possibility that Katie's killer might have acquired an accomplice. The attack victim was able to describe their appearance in detail. The Green Bay authorities published composite sketches, and one of the farmers recognized his workers in them, Joanna Niato and Gregory Morales. Moreover, it turned out that one of these men had relatives in Las Cruces and had visited there several times. There was no doubt that these 2 crimes were connected. However, to confirm this theory, it was necessary to conduct DNA analysis. But here, a problem arose. One of those arrested sensed that they were suspected of murder, and both fled from Green Bay. The police began searching for them. Eventually, after several weeks, an anonymous tip revealed where they could be found. They were arrested in Atlanta, Georgia. All that remained was to conduct DNA analysis to establish one of their involvement in Katie's murder. But the results were disappointing. Neither DNA matched. The crimes were connected to each other. Almost 2 years had passed, and the detectives decided to check all the materials once more, to review the photographs. Perhaps they had missed something. They had 3 boxes of documents, and they carefully studied them so as not to miss any detail. However, despite all their efforts, they couldn't discover any new information. The public insisted that the police find the perpetrator as quickly as possible. However, the detectives had no idea how to do this, and they weren't sure if they would be able to do it at all. Thus, Katie's case had reached another dead end. But this didn't stop the Sepich family. They continued to demand justice. Katie's mother played an important role in this case, attracting media attention and not allowing the police to stop the investigation. The best evidence was DNA. Therefore, the detectives didn't give up. They were confident that if a man with the same DNA appeared in the database, they would find him. And on December 18th, 2006, 3.5 years after Katie's murder, Detective Myers finally received the long-awaited news. He received a letter from the laboratory stating that a man with the same DNA had been identified. This was a turning point in the investigation. Now, the detective could name Katie's killer. Gabriel Avila's DNA had been found on her body. Gabriel Avila was known for his criminal past. At that time, he had been released from a New Mexico prison where he had served time for robbery and rape. 3 months after Katie's death, he was arrested again. This arrest demonstrated that there were certain problems in the investigative system. The police could have found the criminal in 3 months, not 3.5 years. Katie's parents were very upset and couldn't understand why the police didn't use such an effective tool as DNA. For 3.5 years, the police had been unable to establish the identity and motives of the brutal murder of 22-year-old Katie Sepich. However, now there was finally an answer to one of the main questions: who did it? When local residents learned about the DNA match, they were shocked to learn that Gabriel Avila had already been in police custody immediately after Katie's murder. He had tried to another girl, and it seems that Katie's murder had only intensified his desire. He had broken into his potential victim's bedroom, but didn't know that there was a roommate in the room. Realizing his mistake, he panicked and fled before he could cause harm. The girls quickly called the police, and he was arrested. Analyzing these two cases, Detective Myers noted that Gabriel Avila seemed to have changed his tactics. He had severely beaten Katie Sepich, and this time he had brought a knife with him. He realized that dealing with victims wasn't so easy, and decided that with a knife, he could more easily control the situation and then kill the girl. However, even after the arrest, the case wasn't brought to completion. Complications arose, too much time had passed, and he was released on his own recognizance. Gabriel Avila decided that he wouldn't return to prison and fled. This time, the detectives immediately took DNA samples from the suspect. If DNA analysis had been conducted during the first arrest, it could have saved 3 years. However, despite the lost opportunity, they were now filled with determination to learn everything about Gabriel Avila. Detective Myers decided to speak with his ex-wife to get more information. She indeed provided assistance in the investigation. The ex-wife told Myers about the pickup truck and an unusual find in the car. In one of the cup holders, she had found a diamond ring, and it wasn't her size, but she thought it was for her. It turned out that this was Katie's ring, the ring that Joe had bought for her. Fortunately, she had kept it, which became another piece of evidence against Gabriel Avila. The plan was simple: get Gabriel to talk, and then charge him with rape and murder. Detective Myers acted carefully and professionally. He introduced himself, read Gabriel the Miranda rights, and then at the right moment told him about Katie Sepich, about the DNA match, and showed him the girl's ring. At this moment, Gabriel turned pale and asked where Myers had gotten the ring. The detective replied that if he wanted to somehow soften his punishment, he should tell the whole truth. And Gabriel did just that. The truth he revealed was horrifying. Gabriel Avila said that he had come to this area to buy illegal substances. When he was driving by, he saw Katie and stopped to ask if she needed a ride. She refused. And then he followed her and attacked. There was no turning back. He confessed that after he raped her, he didn't know what to do next and decided to kill her. After strangling the girl, Gabriel Avila took the body to a dump. He thought that if he set her on fire, she would burn completely, but he was wrong. And as a result, the last word remained with Katie. In May of 2007, Gabriel Avila was found guilty of kidnapping and murdering Katie Sepich. He was sentenced to 69 years in prison. But the Sepich family's story doesn't end there. When Gabriel Avila was first arrested, they didn't take a DNA sample from him. In New Mexico and in many states, this was prohibited. The Sepich family couldn't understand why this was happening, and they wanted to learn lessons from their daughter's death and preserve them in a national database. This law was passed in 2010 and was called Katie's Law. Today it operates in 25 states and helps in the faster identification of criminals who may be hiding from justice for months and sometimes years. Katie Sepich's murder can serve as a lesson that, unfortunately, isn't taught in school. People can be both good and very evil. No matter who you are, you can simply find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Friends, what do you think about this story? Write your thoughts in the comments and also subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Bone and clothing fragments found in a renewed search for Madeleine McCann have reportedly been sent in for testing.
We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine.
We begin with the new search for Madeleine McCann, that 3-year-old girl from Britain.
And we will leave no stone unturned in the search for our daughter.
On that fateful evening of May 3, 2007, the world was plunged into uncertainty as Madeleine Beth McCann vanished without a trace, leaving behind a haunting silence that has endured ever since. Her disappearance remains a haunting mystery, lingering in the shadows of time. Before we get started, let us know what city you are from in the comments. Perhaps the next issue will be about a crime in your region. In a matter of weeks, her visage became etched in the minds of millions across the globe. A youthful face, round and innocent, adorned with strikingly large eyes and hair that shimmered like spun gold, captivated the world's attention. Her visage was marked by a cascade of light-colored hair, a striking feature that drew the eye and whispered secrets of her past. Moreover, her visage was infamous for its striking appearance. In a chilling turn of events, a British child, just 3 years old, vanished into thin air after stepping out of the bedroom of a vacation apartment nestled along the southern coast of Portugal. The mystery deepened as the search for the little one began, leaving behind a haunting silence where laughter once echoed. On the rugged Portuguese coast, a flat awaited discovery. In the shadowy corners of history, Portugal emerged as the chosen residence, a setting ripe with intrigue and secrets waiting to be uncovered. The gap separating the accommodation from the spot where her parents had ventured for dinner with their friends was a mere 50 meters, roughly 160 feet. A short distance, yet in the world of fate, even the smallest of spaces can hold the weight of the unexpected. The two locations stood at a distance that was strikingly similar, each one a mirror of the other in the space that lay between them. At first glance, it seemed that everything was under control, a facade of safety cloaking the unfolding drama. Imagine the thrill of packing your bags, setting off on an adventure with your family, and arriving at a destination that promises unforgettable memories. This location beckons, offering a chance to escape the ordinary and immerse yourselves in a world of exploration and relaxation. A vacation here could be the perfect backdrop for stories that will linger long after you've returned home. In a chilling twist of fate, what began as an ordinary day spiraled into a harrowing nightmare, one that would haunt the lives of many for decades to come. This is a scenario that would have been unfathomable to anyone, a twist of fate that defies all expectations. No one could have ever imagined a scenario quite like this. In a seemingly innocent choice, the McCann family opted to spend their holiday in Praia da Luz, a charming yet unassuming town nestled in the heart of Portugal. This resort stood out with its crucial elements: the warm embrace of sunlight, the inviting allure of a swimming pool, the vast expanse of the ocean, and the lively nights filled with dining at bustling restaurants. In a seemingly ordinary moment, Jerry and Kate McCann arrived at their destination, their 3 children in tow, unaware of the dark turn their lives were about to take. In the world of medicine, they have carved out a name for themselves, known far and wide as exceptional professionals, each with a story that speaks to their dedication and skill. At that fateful moment, Madeleine stood as the eldest among the group, a figure of experience amidst the unfolding drama. At the tender age of not even 2, they were identical twins, a duo bound by blood and fate, yet unaware of the dark twist that life would soon unveil. It all began with the chilling coincidence of their simultaneous arrival into the world. On that fateful holiday, the McCanns were not alone. They were accompanied by a group of families, close friends, who shared in the sun-soaked days and laughter, unaware of the dark turn that awaited them. This detail adds an intriguing layer to the narrative. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows on the sand as the day faded into night. Dinner was served, a ritual that unfolded just like any other evening. Yet this one held an air of anticipation, a whisper of something lurking beneath the surface of the ordinary. The days unfolded under the relentless sun at the beach, where the waves whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. As the clock ticked past 7:30 in the evening, the air thickened with the anticipation of bedtime for the restless youngsters, their energy still crackling in the dimming light. On that fateful evening, just as they had done countless times before, the parents made their way to a quaint little restaurant nestled within the resort's grounds, known as the Tapas Bar, to enjoy their dinner. Both of these activities had been carried out in the past. In a time long gone, they had embarked on a journey of their own choosing, driven by motives only they understood. The distance to be traversed was minimal, confined entirely to the courtyard where the event unfolded, a setting that held its own secrets and stories waiting to be uncovered. In a chilling twist of fate, the McCanns chose not to secure the doors, yet they left the windows firmly shut. It was a chilling pact among the adults, a grim resolution to monitor the children at intervals of 15 to 30 minutes, a measure born from an unspoken tension that hung in the air. This was the motive behind the unfolding events. The night was still, the air thick, with the kind of silence that only comes when the world outside fades away. At precisely 9:05 p.m., Jerry slipped into the apartment, the soft creak of the door barely disturbing the slumbering youngsters within. Jerry stepped into the apartment, the first to cross the threshold into the unknown, where secrets lingered in the shadows. As the clock struck 9:30 p.m., Matthew Oldfield, a family friend, ambled past the apartment, his casual stroll interrupted by a glimpse into the unsettling scene unfolding within. He found himself lost in thought, pondering the unsettling reality that everything seemed to be cloaked in an eerie tranquility. The mystery deepens as we ponder whether he crossed the threshold into the bedroom or if he dared to flick on the light illuminating the shadows of that fateful night. Both of these mysteries remain shrouded in uncertainty. It was around 10 o'clock at night when Kate ventured out alone, driven by a mother's instinct to check on her children. She engaged in this behavior time and time again. The instant she crossed the threshold of the apartment, an unsettling feeling washed over her, a whisper of something amiss lurking in the shadows. Her instincts whispered that something was deeply wrong with the unfolding events. The space between the door and the bedroom loomed larger than what one might typically expect, an unsettling gap that hinted at secrets waiting to be uncovered. The space exuded an unsettling calm, a deceptive tranquility that lingered in the air, masking the secrets hidden within its walls. In the dim light of the room, the bed where Madeline once lay was hauntingly empty, a chilling reminder of her absence. The shutters, once tightly drawn, now hung ajar, revealing a window that gaped open, inviting us into the unknown as we crossed the threshold. In that chilling moment, she realized with a jolt that Madeline was no longer a part of her life. Amidst the chaos, Kate burst out into the night, her voice piercing the air with a chilling declaration. "They've taken her!" The shadows loomed large, concealing the very figures responsible for her vanishing act. In the wake of these events, chaos erupted, leaving everyone in a state of sheer panic. As the shadows lengthened and the night deepened, the hotel, staff, tourists, friends, and local police banded together, scouring the darkened surroundings in a desperate search that stretched into the late hours. Tension hung in the air, each rustle of leaves and distant sound amplifying the urgency of their mission. The eerie silence lingered, a haunting reminder of the once bustling hotel, now stripped bare of any guests. The door transformed into a revolving portal, spinning in both directions, responding to the ebb and flow of those who dared to enter and exit the apartment. To maintain the safety of the entrances, locks were conspicuously absent. The investigation revealed a chilling truth. All potential evidence has been ruthlessly erased, leaving behind a haunting void where clues once lay. After what felt like an eternity, the police finally made their entrance at the scene, ready to unravel the mystery that lay before them. The investigators, it seems, failed to take any steps to safeguard the scene, leaving it vulnerable and untouched by preventative measures. In stark contrast, the state of the room remained shrouded in mystery, with no documentation to speak of, whether it be photographs or any written accounts. It was as if the very essence of the space had vanished, leaving behind an unsettling void of information. In the stillness of the early morning, A chilling realization settled in the crucial hours, had slipped away forever beyond recovery, leaving a haunting void in their wake. In the shadowy realm of crime, the Portuguese police found themselves grappling with a daunting challenge. Their inexperience loomed large, casting a pall over their efforts to navigate the treacherous waters of such complex situations. Their argument was steeped in cold, hard logic from the outset. With no evidence of forced entry, the notion of an outside attacker orchestrating the disappearance was rendered utterly implausible. It all began with a foundation, a bedrock upon which their theoretical framework was meticulously constructed. Their theory was built upon a foundation of logical reasoning, a meticulous construction that unraveled the complexities of the case. In the shadows of a seemingly ordinary household, a chilling rumor began to take root. Whispers slithered through the air, raising unsettling questions. Were the parents hiding dark secrets from their own children? Could it be that the girl met her end due to a tragic accident, and that the narrative surrounding her death is crafted to suggest she was a victim of foul play instead? If that is indeed the case, then we find ourselves staring into a chilling and thought-provoking prospect. Local media outlets may have unwittingly fanned the flames of speculation, their involvement casting a shadow over the truth as rumors began to swirl. Amidst the swirling emotions of the public, some felt a deep sorrow for the parents, while others cast wary glances, harboring doubts and suspicions about their true nature. The opinions of the general public were far from unanimous. The investigation, once a relentless pursuit of truth, suddenly ground to a halt at that fateful juncture. In the shadows of the investigation, the search for tangible proof proved fruitless, leaving behind a chilling void where evidence should have been. The motel, a seemingly innocuous establishment, was devoid of any surveillance cameras during its operation, leaving its shadowy corners unmonitored and vulnerable. Not a single fingerprint emerged from the investigation of the windows, leaving a chilling void in the evidence collected. In the shadowy depths of that fateful night, the precise moment of Madeleine's disappearance eludes us, shrouded in uncertainty and ambiguity. The clock ticks on, yet the exact second remains forever lost to the darkness. In the chilling silence of that hour, a window of uncertainty opened wide. Jerry's last check had been a mere moment in time, and with Kate's arrival looming, one couldn't help but wonder what shadows might have crept in during that fleeting interval. Anything could have happened in that dark expanse, leaving behind whispers of secrets yet to be uncovered. It was a narrow window of opportunity, a fleeting hour that allowed Kate's visit to unfold. During the investigation, the spotlight turned once more to a family friend, Jane Tanner. She claimed to have seen a man carrying a child around 9:15 p.m., drawing the public's intrigue and raising questions that would linger in the air. Yet, the investigators chose to set it aside for an alarming stretch of time, even as the case lingered under scrutiny. In the aftermath of the harrowing events that unfolded, a relentless pursuit began to uncover the true identity of the enigmatic guest. Upon delving deeper into the case, the truth emerged. He was merely a tourist, navigating the complexities of parenthood alone as he picked up his child. As the investigation unfolded, dark truths began to emerge, revealing the hidden layers of this chilling case. The misstep led to a significant delay in the investigation, stretching on for months. In its wake, a troubling number of prospects were ultimately rejected, their fates sealed by the oversight. After a long drawn-out period that stretched over several months, the British police finally sprang into action, responding to the unfolding situation. In a dramatic turn of events, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom found himself cornered, compelled to initiate an independent investigation. This pivotal decision came in the wake of mounting pressure from the restless populace, whose voices echoed with urgency and demand for accountability. It was decided to initiate Operation Grange, a monumental endeavor that aimed to meticulously reconstruct the entire sequence of events from the very beginning. What unfolded here was nothing short of a colossal endeavor. Every single day, every phrase uttered, and every detail observed was scrutinized through a fresh lens, revealing layers of meaning that might otherwise go unnoticed. As the investigation unfolded, the authorities delved deep, conducting a multitude of interviews, piecing together the suspect's movements, and sifting through a trove of evidence that spanned both recent events and the annals of history. Amidst the chaos unfolding, the media's obsession with the case only intensified, drawing eyes and ears to every chilling detail. Alongside her haunting presence on the front pages of newspapers and the flickering screens of television, Madeline's image loomed large on an array of billboards, each one a silent witness to the unfolding mystery. In a desperate bid to aid the search, the parents took a bold step, founding an organization dedicated to their cause. They reached out, conducting interviews with potential candidates who might hold the key to unraveling the mystery. After the story hit the headlines, it quickly spiraled into a global sensation, captivating audiences everywhere. In a world fraught with uncertainty, some nations expressed their deep-seated doubts, while others stepped forward, extending a hand of support in the shadows of doubt. A multitude of nations stepped forward, extending their support in a time of need. A significant number of people believed that the family was drawing an alarming amount of public scrutiny. Some individuals interpreted it as a frantic effort to ensure that the world would not forget the horrors of the past, striving to stop history from repeating itself. In the year 2013, a pivotal moment unfolded as Scotland Yard investigators stumbled upon a revelation that would alter the course of their inquiry. At this juncture, they believed that the enigma of the murder could still be unraveled. During the preliminary assessment, a troubling array of inconsistencies emerged, casting a shadow over the findings that were uncovered. The examination revealed a chilling discovery. A new lead emerged, shrouded in mystery, pointing to a male figure seen lurking in the shadows of the resort complex. Yet, his identity remains elusive, a name lost to the winds of uncertainty for now. This individual emerged as one of the intriguing new leads that came to light. In a desperate bid to locate him, countless searches swept across Europe, yet each one ended in failure, leaving a haunting silence in their wake. Following that, a call from an unknown number to the phone of Christian Bruckner, a German citizen with a shadowy past, emerged as yet another unsettling detail that captivated public interest. This call was shrouded in an air of mystery, leaving those who heard it feeling unsettled and intrigued. In a twist of fate, it was Christian Bruckner who ultimately found himself on the receiving end of the call. It was on that fateful evening, the very night when Madeline disappeared, just moments before the call was made. For a significant stretch of time, this information lay shrouded in secrecy, carefully concealed from the prying eyes of the public, even after it had been thoroughly examined. In a twist that would change the course of the investigation, the year 2020 saw German authorities shift their focus squarely onto Bruckner. This marked a pivotal turn in the unfolding narrative. Throughout his life, Christian Bruckner has woven a dark tapestry of criminality, marked by theft, sexual assault, and heinous acts against the most vulnerable children. In the shadowy world of his exploits, a mere glimpse reveals just a fraction of the illicit activities he had immersed himself in. In the year 2007, he found himself living in a van parked ominously near the shadowy edges of Praia da Luz. The residents of the area painted a picture of a man shrouded in hostility and solitude, a figure who seemed to exist on the fringes of their community. He moved through life like a shadow, a solitary figure shrouded in mystery. In a chilling revelation, investigators unearthed hard disks, laden with explicit content, concealed beneath the cold, unyielding surface of a concrete floor in one of his residences. Only after a considerable passage of time did this chilling discovery come to light. In a twist that could rival the most gripping tales of crime, the McCann investigation revealed that he was already behind bars when he was named a person of interest. A chilling detail that adds another layer to this complex case. The German authorities have made it clear. There is no room for doubt. He is entangled in the web of illegal conduct, and the evidence speaks volumes. Indeed, they took the bold step of asserting that they had reasons to believe Madeline had departed. They took extraordinary measures to support this claim. Yet, the authorities find themselves in a precarious position, unable to level formal charges against him. The evidence they possess remains tantalizingly inadequate, leaving them in a frustrating limbo. This is the chilling reason behind their inability to proceed. Bruckner maintains his innocence regarding the incident, yet his denials cast a shadow of doubt. His legal representatives allege that the investigation is twisting the truth to fit a particular narrative. Every detail of the study was scrutinized once more, as if under the relentless gaze of a detective seeking the truth hidden within the shadows. In a gripping turn of events, law enforcement agencies in Portugal and Germany launched extensive searches, delving into the depths of abandoned mines and wells, leaving no stone unturned in their relentless pursuit of the truth. The searches unfolded across both nations, a meticulous pursuit of truth in the shadows of their borders. In stark contrast, Madeleine remained elusive, slipping through the cracks of every search, her presence felt but never seen. In this shadowy interim, fresh hypotheses emerged, taking shape and solidifying in the minds of those who dared to explore the unknown. The chilling possibility looms that Madeleine was not just taken, but rather kidnapped and thrust into the dark underbelly of sexual slavery, a conclusion drawn from the findings of several independent investigators who delved into this haunting case. The evidence leads us to a chilling conclusion, one that emerges from the shadows of the findings themselves. In the shadows of the area during that time, the presence of organized trafficking networks loomed large, playing a pivotal role in the emergence of this chilling concept. It is crucial to emphasize that this element was a significant player in the unfolding events. It must be emphasized, though, that no evidence exists that can be deemed direct. Every explanation grapples with a haunting dilemma: the absence of a lifeless form, the silence of witnesses, and the elusive truth of what truly transpired. Despite the chaos that has unfolded, Madeleine's parents continue their relentless bickering, a bitter testament to their unresolved turmoil that persists even now. Despite the whirlwind of events that have unfolded, this remains the chilling reality. These individuals have emerged as symbols of resilience, shaped by the relentless scrutiny that has been cast upon them. As the world watches, hearts heavy with empathy, the relentless accusations continue to echo, a haunting reminder of the shadows cast by their past actions. Whispers of theories linger in the shadows, suggesting that it all started with a catastrophic accident, shrouded in a veil of secrecy orchestrated by the very parents meant to protect. The conversation surrounding these hypotheses is unfolding, shrouded in intrigue and speculation. At one point, it seemed entirely possible that the Portuguese authorities would label them as suspects. Yet, in a twist of fate, those claims were ultimately abandoned, shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. With each passing year, the flicker of hope within the hearts of the people fades, dimming further into the shadows of despair. The McCanns remain resolute in their commitment to their cause, undeterred by the events that have unfolded. They persist in sharing public statements about their daughter, unveiling photographs that capture her growth, and crafting digital reconstructions that speculate on her appearance as she approaches adulthood. In the years 22 and 23, a new chapter unfolded, marked by the onset of fresh investigations that were meticulously underway. A further sweep was conducted in those very areas, leaving no stone unturned. Conversely, when we delve into the past, we find an unsettling void-in absence of clarity, a silence that speaks volumes. Since the dawn of the 21st century, the tale of Madeleine McCann has transformed into a haunting emblem of the unsettling reality of vanishing without a trace. In the wake of this, a staggering number of investigations, articles, podcasts, and films have emerged, each unraveling the intricate threads of the story. It holds the weighty responsibility for the creation of all these elements. The unsuspecting public believes they have a firm grasp on the unfolding events, but the truth runs much deeper than surface-level understanding. No evidence has surfaced to back up the claims they have put forth. In a peculiar twist of fate, the truth remains elusive, shrouded in uncertainty, leaving no one able to declare with certainty what the reality truly is. As the years slipped by, a haunting 18 had elapsed since she vanished, leaving no clue behind. At this juncture, Madeleine would cross the threshold into adulthood, marking a significant transition as she reaches this pivotal age. In stark contrast, the world will forever hold onto the image of her as the timid young girl with wide, innocent eyes, captured in a haunting black and white poster that tells a story of its own. Her legacy will echo through the ages, a haunting reminder of the life she led. There exists a chance that the elusive truth may one day emerge from the shadows, provided it still lingers somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. Moreover, there lurks a chance that the truth may one day be revealed. The haunting tale of Madeleine McCann remains one of the most confounding and harrowing tragedies in human history, a dark chapter that continues to baffle and disturb all who encounter it. As it stands, this is the chilling reality we face.
An active investigation now underway. Bray was last seen leaving her Laurel workplace early Tuesday morning. Her car found hours later and miles away.
We're out here right now searching because this is where her car was. We don't have any evidence or any other indicators.
The level of violence and brutality suffered by Ms. Bray is astonishing.
She was the greatest person. She would give her shirt off her back to freeze so you wouldn't freeze. That's just the type of person she was.
She was 57 years old. She was known for her extraordinary beauty and incredible kindness. The entire town knew her as a gentle, caring woman who adored her dogs and never walked past someone else's troubles. But it all ended so brutally that when the priest opened her coffin, he turned pale, trembled, and nearly lost consciousness. How did it happen that an angel in human form deserved such a cruel end? But before we begin, please write where you are from and what time it is for you right now. Please also write if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, then please let us know in the comments how we can earn your subscription. We want to create the best true crime in the world for you. Let's begin. The woman in this story was named Lori Bray. She lived in the small town of Laurel, Montana, just 7,000 residents. Such places usually seem peaceful, cozy, even safe. But peace is often just an illusion. In 2019, Lori was 57. She lived alone with her 2 beloved dogs and was considered one of the kindest people in town. Good, quiet, always smiling, the kind of person people say has light inside them. Neighbors, colleagues, acquaintance, everyone who had even once spoken with her remembered her warmly. But as often happens, when light is too bright, it attracts darkness. And in Lori's life, that darkness eventually appeared. Lori worked at a casino. September 30th, 2019 was an ordinary day. She finished her shift, closed the establishment around midnight, and drove home. On October 1st, the woman was supposed to come to work at 8:30 in the morning, but she didn't show up. This had never happened with responsible Lori before she needed this job. Her supervisor, Katie, tried calling her, but it was useless. The woman wasn't answering her phone, so Katie drove to see what had happened. She drove around the areas near work, hoping to find Lori. Along the way on a deserted highway, she saw a car that looked like the missing woman's vehicle. From a distance, something didn't seem right to her. The car's position and location were strange. The automobile was positioned at an unusual angle. There were fields all around, and Lori usually didn't drive this route because it was in the opposite direction from her home. There were no houses or stores nearby, so Lori had no business being there. At first glance, it seemed like someone was sitting behind the wheel. Katie decided not to panic prematurely and not to disturb the car's owner. She wasn't sure this was Lori's car, so she stopped at a respectful distance and called Justin, Lori's son. Katie told him about her suspicions regarding the employee's disappearance. The young man said he hadn't received the morning call that his mother made every day. This was also strange, so he was somewhat worried. A little earlier, the young man had tried calling himself, but the phone didn't respond to either calls or messages. After this, Justin drove to his mother's house and didn't find her car near the house where it usually stood. No one answered the door. The young man looked through the windows, but saw no one inside. He encountered the woman's dogs, who were behaving restlessly. What alarmed him was that they hadn't been fed. Lori loved animals too much to simply forget about her beloved pets and leave them hungry. It seemed that his mother hadn't made it home at all. This was the only explanation for what he saw. Justin examined the area around the house but found nothing interesting. Then he used his key and went inside. There the young man saw a made bed and his mother's belongings weren't inside. The kettle was cold. Everything looked as if she hadn't had breakfast and hadn't spent the night at home. After the inspection, Justin called his mother's supervisor, Katie, and said that Lori wasn't at home. In his opinion, his mother hadn't spent the night at her house. The young man suggested that the car Katie found could very well belong to his mother, so the vehicle should be checked. The missing woman's colleague agreed to examine the car and waited for Justin. When the young man arrived and they approached the car, they saw that no one was inside. It was a 2003 Chrysler that wasn't locked. The son recognized that this was definitely Lori's car. They opened the doors and examined the interior. Inside, they found Lori's purse, as well as her phone, which was turned on. There were many missed calls on it. Since the woman herself wasn't inside, and they found bloodstains in the car, they decided not to continue examining the vehicle, but to call the police, so as not to spoil important evidence. They were worried that something might have happened to Lori and she was in danger. So Katie and Justin dialed 911 and waited for the police to arrive. As soon as the police began examining the car, they started finding one alarming trace after another. There was the missing woman's dirty footwear, as well as her torn clothing. They found her underwear, which was torn and bloody. Everything indicated that something terrible had happened there. So the police declared Lori Bray missing and began searching for her. They assumed that the woman had been attacked and possibly was no longer alive. The entire community around Lori's home actively responded to this event. People shared posts about the woman's disappearance on social media, distributed flyers, and participated in searches for the missing woman. Everyone was worried about kind Lori. They knew well that the woman loved animals. Very much she had repeatedly taken dogs from shelters to temporarily keep at her place until they found new owners. It was clear that such a person would never abandon her two beloved pets. Moreover, this was a very quiet town where almost nothing ever happened. Any cases of attacks occurred very rarely and caused a stormy reaction from local residents. The media covered this case, trying to draw more attention to the investigation and find those who knew at least something about the events of that night, but no one came forward. This event shook the community. People worried that a cruel killer was still walking among them. Local residents who cared about what happened and who knew Lori personally created a support fund for the missing woman's family and also helped care for the dogs that were left without their owner. Lori's car was discovered on a vast open territory with endless rural lands. This area consisted of dirty dirt roads and grass-covered spaces, making the search for any traces or clues an extremely difficult task for investigators. Numerous volunteers joined the official search efforts, concerned about Lori's fate and determined to learn the truth about what happened. All search participants reached the same conclusion. The horrifying traces inside the vehicle testified to a possible tragedy that befell the 57-year-old woman, who could not have deserved this in any way. She simply had no people who could wish her harm. Lori was last seen at her workplace after the establishment where she worked closed. After this moment, no one could determine the woman's exact whereabouts. For this reason, the area around the found automobile was thoroughly searched by law enforcement officers together with volunteers. More than 60 people began this operation at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning. At the same time, police established that around 1 o'clock at night, a local sheriff had come across Lori's vehicle. However, he didn't conduct a detailed examination of the car, limiting himself to checking the license plate through the database. The Chrysler wasn't listed as stolen, so the law enforcement representative simply drove on, not noticing the horrifying traces in the interior in the darkness. Additionally, law enforcement examined the woman's mobile phone but didn't discover any suspicious phone calls. Investigators requested video recordings from the casino's surveillance cameras, but couldn't find anything suspicious in these materials. The woman performed her usual daily duties, including cleaning after the work shift ended, and then calmly headed home. Investigators tried to find witnesses who were at the casino that day and might have observed something unusual. They questioned visitors they managed to identify, but they also couldn't provide useful information to the investigation. Based on surveillance camera footage, it was established that there were few clients in the establishment that day. During the last few hours before Lori Bray left, she had only a few brief conversations with visitors. These were two ordinary women in the bar area, and around 11 o'clock in the evening, A certain young man visited the casino, to whom Lori served an alcoholic drink. She checked his identification documents in accordance with her standard work duties to ensure he was of legal age. The young man remained in the establishment until late, until the missing woman pointed to the clock, making it clear that the establishment would soon stop operating and he needed to leave. However, no suspicious events occurred inside the casino after this. The young man calmly left the premises, and later Lori also left the casino. After this, investigators began studying recordings from external surveillance cameras. Lori left the casino with her personal belongings, locked the entrance doors, got into her car somewhat after midnight, but before this had a brief conversation with the same young visitor who had left the establishment before her. After the conversation, the stranger got into the passenger seat of her vehicle, and they drove away together. There was no other person in that area. There were all reasons to assume that this man became the last person who saw Lori before her disappearance, and he aroused serious suspicions among investigators. Detectives now had the task of identifying this young man. They showed surveillance footage to other casino employees, as well as regular customers of the establishment, and they recognized the young man. He turned out to be 22-year-old Diego Hernandez. Investigators decided to immediately conduct a conversation with the young man and went to his address. The investigators found him at his registered address. The young man confirmed that it was indeed him in the surveillance camera recordings. According to his explanations, Diego asked Lori to give him a ride because he had stayed at the establishment too long and had no way to get home on his own. He had arrived without his own transportation, and the woman agreed to help. She delivered the visitor directly to his house, after which she left, and Diego later went to another party to continue his entertainment. The young man didn't encounter her again. Despite the fact that Hernandez's words sounded convincing, the police were alarmed by fresh scratches on his hands and face. Investigators questioned the young man about the origin of these injuries, as the scratches resembled injuries received during a physical altercation. From the police officer's professional experience, they looked suspicious. Diego explained that even before visiting the casino, he had had a conflict and then a physical fight with one of his friends, Nick, and he had jewelry with sharp edges, which caused him to receive these injuries. Diego didn't get confused in his explanations, and investigators, no matter how hard they tried to find contradictions in his words, couldn't do it. So law enforcement left immediately after receiving satisfactory answers. However, Diego's alibi needed verification, since there were simply no other leads in the case. For this reason, investigators went to his friend Nick, with whom they allegedly had a conflict shortly before the woman's disappearance. The friend confirmed that they had indeed met a few days ago, but no physical fight had occurred between them, and Hernandez already had a damaged face. And during their last meeting the day before, Diego was very agitated and behaving inappropriately. Due to such behavior, he had to kick his friend out, pushing him out of the car. Investigators rechecked video materials from casino cameras, but the recording quality turned out to be insufficient to accurately determine the presence or absence of scratches on the suspicious visitor's face. Later, police managed to find out that before the trip to the casino, he had been at a bar. They requested surveillance camera recordings from that establishment, and they turned out to be of much better quality. On the footage from the bar, they were able to accurately establish that there were no injuries on his face. However, connecting this to Lori's disappearance wasn't enough evidence to bring specific charges. This was simply insufficient to continue the case. While investigators continued gathering information, at 7:30 that evening, a person contacted police reporting the discovery of a naked woman's body while riding an ATV through a forested area. Police officers immediately went to the indicated location. There, law enforcement was able to identify the missing person. The body lay in a ditch, covered with dirt, in a fetal position. There were numerous injuries on the body sustained from beating. It seemed that the perpetrator had used a stone or simply methodically inflicted blows to the body for a long time. Lori was located 3 kilometers from her car. There were countless abrasions on the body, with the head particularly severely damaged. And later, forensic experts discovered 2 broken ribs and signs of strangulation. Most likely, this was a sexually motivated crime. Additionally, the deceased wasn't killed at this location. Her body was brought here later, as evidenced by drag marks on her back, and there were no blood traces near the discovery site. Most likely, she was killed in her own car, where numerous bloodstains were found, or near it. Even experienced police officers were shocked by the cruelty with which the crime was committed. By the number of abrasions, bruises, and fractures, this case surpassed everything that had previously happened in this quiet town. During the investigation of the horrific discovery site, investigators found a clearly imprinted shoe print that matched a print found in the car's interior. This imprint could become key evidence in the case, and it needed to be compared with Diego Hernandez's footwear, who was already arousing suspicions among law enforcement. The autopsy showed that Lori's death resulted from strangulation. Specialists also established that the woman was brutally raped, as evidenced by numerous tissue tears. Male DNA from the perpetrator was found on the deceased's body. Investigators continued checking all information received from Hernandez. After analyzing data about the murdered woman's mobile phone location, police established that she never made it to Diego's house, despite the fact that he claimed otherwise. Meaning his story was an outright lie. This further strengthened suspicions regarding Diego. Additionally, while questioning female employees of another bar that Diego visited before the casino, detectives learned that he had been harassing the establishment's staff. The young man behaved quite brazenly and unceremoniously, insisting that they give him a ride home. But all the female employees refused him, and he left. On October 4th, based on all collected evidence, a warrant was issued to search Diego's residence. There they found a pair of Nike sneakers with a sole whose imprint resembled the trace found at the crime scene. Investigators noticed that this footwear had been recently carefully washed. The sneakers were sent to the laboratory for examination. It turned out that the imprint of these sneakers was completely identical to that found in Lori's car interior, as well as near her body. Additionally, clothing similar to what Hernandez wore in the bar and casino on the day of the deceased's disappearance was found. However, the items had been carefully washed and treated with cleaning agents. The clothing was also sent for expert examination. It was expected that some bloodstains or DNA traces might have remained on it, but after such intensive processing, unfortunately, nothing could be detected. Diego was meanwhile brought in for repeated questioning, and they took a DNA sample from him to compare with the sample found on Lori's body after the rape. The young man immediately became nervous and changed his testimony. The suspect clarified that they had known each other for a long time and maintained communication. Diego claimed that they were indeed in the same place where the car was discovered. He and Lori stopped in the deserted area to talk. They smoked and then felt mutual attraction. They had sex, and after a brief conversation, the suspect simply left and doesn't know what happened to the deceased afterward. Law enforcement officers present at the interrogation were skeptical about this. After all, Lori had never been noticed having such romances before. This was absolutely uncharacteristic of her. Additionally, the significant age difference was troubling 35 years. Everyone who knew Lori claimed that it was unlikely that a mature woman who devoted all her free time to children and grandchildren would begin a relationship with such a young man. She simply didn't have the time or interest for this. Also, a few years ago, she had been in a toxic relationship from which she had difficulty escaping. After this, the woman put an end to her personal life and made a vow never to date anyone again. Investigators were convinced that Diego Hernandez was involved in this crime, so they continued the investigation, accumulating more and more evidence. Sensing danger, Hernandez again changed his testimony, claiming that he had been in a relationship with the murdered woman for over a year, but they kept it secret. However, careful examination of their phones showed this was untrue. They never communicated, called, or exchanged messages. There was no call history or text messages between them, which would have been impossible in the case of a serious long-term romance. It seemed they weren't even acquainted before that fatal night. And if they were acquainted and had been dating for a whole year, why didn't Lori introduce him to friends or her family? And why did she check the young man's identification documents if she knew him? All of this didn't align with his story, and it sounded absolutely implausible. On October 8, 2019, Diego Hernandez was arrested on charges of first-degree murder and taken into custody. This was a real shock for all local residents who knew the accused as a calm and polite person. He had never previously shown cruelty, aggression, or propensity for violence, was quiet and modest, but all facts pointed only to him. The prosecution insisted that this was a brutal murder. Diego asked kind-hearted, accommodating Lori to give him a ride, and she agreed. The woman was too trusting, always saw only good in people, and didn't even suspect the young man's dark intentions toward her. During the ride, Diego began harassing Lori, but she refused him, after which he attacked, beat the woman in a deserted place, raped and strangled her. All of this was confirmed by characteristic traces on the deceased's body. They found traces of his DNA in the car, which were later also found under the victim's fingernails. Lori resisted and fought for her life until the last moment, and it was she who inflicted defensive scratches on his face. The trial of 24-year-old Hernandez began in March 2021. It took a lot of time to reconstruct the entire sequence of events in detail. Diego never admitted his guilt, despite irrefutable evidence, and insisted on his innocence. The defendant continued to claim that he and the deceased were in a romantic relationship, but no one believed this. This was denied by her children, friends, and colleagues who were familiar with her personal life. The prosecutors stated that Diego Hernandez was a real predator who couldn't resist an attractive woman, and taking advantage of her kindness and convenient situation, attacked her due to his perverted fantasies. The jury deliberated the case materials for about 2 hours, after which they unanimously concluded that Hernandez was guilty of first-degree murder, since all signs of premeditation were found in the case. At the sentencing stage in the courtroom, Diego Hernandez made an unexpected statement, fully admitting his guilt. As a result, he received life imprisonment with the right to parole no earlier than 35 years from the beginning of serving his term. The bloody killer still remains in Montana State Prison. The cruel story of Lori Bray is not just one person's tragedy. It's a mirror that each of us should look into. This isn't a story about bad people existing in the world. This is a story about how evil knows how to wear a mask of normalcy. About how the most dangerous thing is when we start living on autopilot, when it seems that this won't happen to me, when we trust blindly, ignore warning bells, forget about basic caution. We all want to see good in people, but the truth is that evil in our world isn't decreasing. It's just becoming smarter, more silent, quieter. Now it doesn't come at you with a knife in an alley. Now it smiles, asks how you're doing, and quietly follows you at night when you think you're already safe. We can't know who will be the next target, but we can reduce the risks. First of all, it's attentiveness to people around us, to circumstances, to details. A suspicious look, an incomprehensible call, a car that's been standing in the same place for several days in a row, an unfamiliar face near the house. This isn't paranoia. This is basic safety hygiene. We wash our hands to avoid catching a virus. We should react the same way to things that don't fit the norm. This doesn't mean living in fear, it means being present in reality. The second point is communication. If you live alone, establish a habit of regularly informing someone where you are, when you're leaving, when you're returning. Sounds banal? But often this banality saves lives. If something happens to you, it's important that it's noticed immediately. As in this story, the fact that Lori didn't call her son became the first alarming signal. And what if she hadn't had such contact with loved ones? What if the son hadn't known that his mother always called? Everything would have dragged on even longer. And third, technology. We live in a time when everyone has a smartphone, but many still don't use it for personal safety. There are apps that track your location, allow you to send an SOS signal in case of danger. Surveillance cameras, recorders, GPS trackers, all of this is available and cheap today. The question isn't about money. The question is whether we take danger seriously before something happens. One more important thing. Don't think that bad things only happen in nightclubs, big cities, or to those who are to blame themselves. Lori lived in a town of 7,000 people, among open fields and familiar faces, and it was there that a person was found who calmly planned, watched, waited for the moment. Statistics show that most attacks, disappearances, and even murders aren't the work of random maniacs, but of people the victim knew, trusted. Lori's story confirms this. The one who destroyed her life watched her, knew her schedule, knew when she was alone. Therefore, the main rule: don't ignore intuition. It often speaks quietly, but accurately. If you feel uncomfortable, trust this. If something alarms you, step away, refuse, call, ask for help. Don't be afraid to seem strange, hysterical, paranoid. This is better than staying silent and then not having time to change anything. And also take care of each other. Never underestimate the power of a simple, "How are you?" message, or "Are you home yet?" call. It's exactly this small thing that sometimes saves lives. Let Lori's story be a painful but valuable reminder. No one is immune, but everyone can do something to reduce the risk. And if at least one person after this becomes a little more attentive, careful, values themselves and life a little more, then this story wasn't in vain.
We begin this evening with the murder investigation of Mackenzie Lueck.
Emily, today police revealing just horrific details of how this whole ordeal came an end at this home here in the Fair Park area of Salt Lake City. The owner of this home now sitting behind bars.
One day after the arrest of a suspect in the murder of 23-year-old University of Utah student Mackenzie Lueck, questions remain about her disappearance and death.
Salt Lake City police say the search continues for 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck. The University of Utah nursing student has been missing for 8 days, and today investigators hope to release more information on the case.
Her disappearance remains a chilling mystery, leaving everyone in the dark. No one knows her fate, and that uncertainty is nothing short of terrifying. As the Lyft driver vanished into the night, Hatch Park remained shrouded in darkness, a silent witness to the secrets that lingered in the shadows. In the dead of night, just past the witching hour of 3 a.m., the world lay shrouded in darkness. Before we find out all the details, what do you think? Has this crime been solved or not? Write your bet in the comments. It was a fateful Monday. Just 1 hour after her arrival in Salt Lake City, 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck stepped into a world that would soon turn dark. She was making her way back from her grandmother's funeral in California, a journey marked by sorrow and reflection. There she was, a solitary figure beneath the looming trees, dragging her suitcase across the grass, inching closer to the parked car that awaited her departure. Many questions linger in the shadows, but one chilling fact stands out. Within mere minutes, her phone was silenced, never to flicker back to life. And there he stood, the man lurking in the shadows, having already disabled the security cameras that once watched over his domain. As dawn broke, he meticulously began to erase the traces of his dark deeds, ensuring that by the time night fell, he would ignite a blaze that would demand attention from all who passed by. It would take nearly 2 weeks, a dozen warrants, and a backyard excavation before the police uncovered the chilling depths of this case. Mackenzie Lueck was a young woman whose warmth drew people in, leaving an indelible mark on those who crossed her path. In the sun-soaked streets of El Segundo, California, a young girl forged an unbreakable bond with her family, particularly her beloved grandmother, whose influence would shape her life in ways she could never have imagined. It was in June of 2019 when the news struck like a thunderclap. Mackenzie's grandmother had passed away. Without a moment's pause, she boarded a flight home, compelled by the weight of loss and the pull of family ties. The funeral was a somber affair, heavy with grief. Yet, amidst the sorrow, she found a way to connect with her friends, sending them updates and snapshots, weaving a thread of communication through the darkness of loss. As the clock ticked towards Sunday night, June 16th, she found herself on the road back to Utah, a place where she immersed herself in the study of kinesiology at the University of Utah. Mackenzie was driven by an insatiable ambition. Her aspirations were set for graduation in 2020, a year that held promise and potential. Conversations with advisors had sparked her interest in nursing, and even the daunting path of medical school loomed on the horizon. Beyond the classroom walls, she toiled away at a biological testing lab, her nights filled with the camaraderie of the Alpha Chi Omega sorority. Her life unfolded like a tapestry woven with dreams, aspirations, and a circle of admirers who cherished her deeply. In the early hours of June 17th, precisely at 1:30 a.m., Mackenzie's flight made its descent into the bustling airport of Salt Lake City. After sending a reassuring text to her mother, confirming her safe arrival, she slipped into a Lyft taxi at precisely 2:42 a.m., the night cloaked in shadows and secrets. Yet Mackenzie chose not to return home. Instead, she instructed the driver to take her to Hatch Park, a destination roughly 20 minutes down the road. As they pulled into the destination, she leaned in and whispered that she was about to meet a friend. The driver recounted that she seemed neither frightened nor anxious. She stepped out of the car, her suitcase rolling behind her as she crossed the grass, approaching a figure waiting in a different vehicle, shrouded in the shadows of the evening. In a chilling turn of events, the Lyft driver abruptly sped away, leaving behind an unsettling silence. It was the final moment anyone would catch a glimpse of Mackenzie Lueck, her presence fading into the shadows of an unfolding mystery. Residents of North Salt Lake find themselves on edge this evening as the police delve deeper into the ongoing investigation surrounding Hatch Park, the final location where 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck vanished from sight. In the shadows of our apartment complex, just across the street, the undercover units prowled like hawks. They circled the area, their eyes scanning every corner, every detail, as if searching for the hidden truths lurking in plain sight. 3 vehicles just cruised down the road, their presence a stark reminder of the ongoing search. Residents across from the park watch closely as state police persistently request nearby surveillance footage. The tension in the neighborhood thickens as they patrol, all eyes on the hunt for Mackenzie.
At this time, we cannot confirm the make and model of the vehicle that picked up Mackenzie or the description of the person at Hatch Park on June 17th.
Lueck Mackenzie and Ayoola Ajayi first crossed paths months prior, their fates intertwined on a website known as Seeking Arrangement. This controversial platform served as a digital marketplace for sugar daddies and sugar babies, where desires and intentions mingled in the shadows of modern romance. Despite the heavy weight of stigma that hung in the air, Mackenzie's friends stood by her side, refusing to cast judgment. She stood alone, a fortress of financial savvy, her eyes sharp and unyielding to the world's deceptions. But what remained hidden from everyone was the true peril that an oiler posed. At first glance, he appeared to be a man of great achievement. Hailing from Nigeria, he had established himself as a U.S. resident, holding a green card. His career was marked by stints in IT roles at well-known companies, a testament to his skills and determination. He had even donned the uniform, serving briefly in the Army National Guard. Yet, lurking in the shadows, ominous signals began to emerge. In a twist of fate at Utah State University, Ayoola found himself expelled from campus in 2012, entangled in the web of visa violations and a looming theft investigation. Upon his return in 2015, it quickly became evident that his freedom would be short-lived once more. He delved into the world of computer science, immersing himself in the complexities of code and algorithms, yet the elusive cap and gown never graced his shoulders. In the year 2018, he took a bold step into the literary world by self-publishing a novel. The story, titled Forge Identity, unfolds around a teenager ensnared in a treacherous realm of violent crime. In a chilling twist of fate, 2 characters in the book meet a gruesome end, their lives extinguished and their bodies set ablaze, leaving behind a haunting mystery that lingers in the shadows. Yet the situation took a darker turn. Then there was the room. Only 2 months prior to Mackenzie's mysterious disappearance, a contractor stepped into the light with a haunting tale that would send shivers down the spine. A oiler had made a chilling request to construct a hidden soundproof room, lurking ominously beneath his front porch. He was eager to see it come to an end, and fast. He insisted that it should be devoid of any windows. The walls were destined to be adorned with hooks, each one a silent witness to the secrets they would hold. On that fateful day, a biometric fingerprint lock was destined to be installed on the door. When questioned about the purpose behind it all, he casually asserted that it was merely a hiding spot for alcohol, meant to keep it away from his Mormon girlfriend. The contractor, sensing an unsettling undercurrent, wisely turned down the job, as something about the request just didn't sit right with him. In a chilling twist, a local contractor has stepped into the spotlight, revealing that Ajahi approached him back in April with a peculiar request to construct a soundproof hidden room concealed behind a secret door within the house. Not a chance. Never before has anyone dared to pose such a question to me. After he declined the job offer, Ajahi didn't back down. He relentlessly pursued his goal, sending a barrage of texts that echoed his determination. He was relentless in his pursuit, urgency coursing through his veins. Money was merely a tool, a means to an end, as he raced against the clock, desperate to complete his task before his girlfriend arrived in town. In a chilling twist, a house cleaner would later reveal that Ayula's residence was a veritable fortress of surveillance, with cameras strategically placed throughout, particularly in the bedroom. Unbeknownst to Mackenzie, a dark web of secrets lay just beneath the surface. As she slid into the passenger seat of his car at Hatch Park, a chilling certainty hung in the air. He had meticulously disabled his home security system, a calculated move that revealed the dark intentions brewing in his mind. He knew precisely what was about to unfold. It was the early hours of June 17th when Mackenzie sent a seemingly innocuous text to her mother at 2 a.m. Little did her family know that would be the last communication they would receive from her, plunging them into a chilling silence that would haunt them forever. Initially, they brushed it off as mere busyness. But when she missed a crucial midterm exam, neglected to feed her cat, and failed to appear at a wedding she had eagerly anticipated in California, the unsettling truth began to dawn on them. Alarm bells were ringing, and something felt terribly amiss. In a chilling moment, Greg Lewick, Mackenzie's father, picked up the phone to dial 911, his heart racing as he began to sense that something was terribly amiss. "I'm reaching out to request a wellness check on my daughter, if that's possible. All week, I've been reaching out, desperate to connect with her." I found myself pondering the unsettling thought of someone perhaps making their way to her house just to see if she's all right. The last time anyone laid eyes on her, she stepped off the plane, returning from the glitzy streets of LA. As the clock struck 1 a.m., the world outside lay shrouded in darkness, a silence that hinted at secrets waiting to be uncovered. She intended to summon an Uber and head home, but that was the last I ever heard from her. It was the witching hour, 1 a.m. On this fateful morning? No, it was 1 a.m. It was a Monday morning, the kind that held a promise of secrets waiting to be uncovered. For an entire week, we've been reaching out, desperate to make contact with her. It was unusual for her to leave a call unanswered, yet each attempt led only to the cold, unyielding sound of voicemail. But the question lingers in the air, heavy with suspense. Does anyone possess the key? Uncertainty looms, a shadowy figure in the narrative of life. The answer remains elusive, slipping through the fingers like sand, leaving behind only questions that echo in the silence. The landlord might have access. As for anyone else, I can't think of anyone besides her roommates who would possess a key. Have you ever considered this? Uncertainty looms, a shadow in the mind, leaving one to ponder the depths of the unknown. The landlord might just hold the key to the unfolding drama. It's hard to imagine anyone else having access, aside from her roommates, who were the only ones with a key to that place. In a surprising twist, I must retract my previous statement. She claimed she had dropped one behind the mailbox, a seemingly innocuous act that would haunt her. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, it remained stubbornly out of reach, a silent witness to her secret. There might be something lurking back there, a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. Someone could dig it up, but the question remains, did she ever manage to retrieve it, or is it lost to the shadows forever? Her friends, gripped by a sudden wave of panic, began to realize the gravity of the situation. Kennedy Stoner, a confidant and sorority sister, stepped into the spotlight, sharing her thoughts with the media during those haunting early days. She revealed that Mackenzie was shattered by the loss of her grandmother. Yet, she insisted that this vanishing act seemed completely uncharacteristic. With a hint of intrigue, Kennedy revealed to reporters the deep bonds she shares with her family. She was not the type to simply disappear without a trace. The police initiated a frantic search, their urgency palpable as they combed through every shadowy corner in pursuit of the truth. After her arrival at Salt Lake City International Airport, investigators meticulously followed the trail of Mackenzie's movements. The grainy surveillance footage captured a pivotal moment. She approached the baggage claim, her eyes scanning the crowd before she reached for a brown suitcase, its presence seemingly innocuous, yet laden with secrets. Her eyes held a weary calm, a facade that masked the turmoil beneath. In a chilling turn of events, investigators turned their attention to the Lyft driver who had transported her. He recounted the moment he dropped her off at Hatch Park, a seemingly innocuous location. With a calm demeanor, he confirmed that she had willingly entered another vehicle, leaving behind a trail of questions that would haunt those searching for answers. He claimed she appeared calm, almost serene, as she stepped into another vehicle without hesitation. He claimed that she appeared untroubled, showing no signs of distress or any indication that she needed assistance. It was one of those moments that could change everything. Just as I was about to shut down my app and head home, a new order pinged through, sending me to pick someone up downtown. Little did I know, this would lead me into the heart of an unfolding story. It was a seemingly ordinary day when I set out to collect that individual, unaware of the unfolding narrative that awaited me. It was as if they shared a secret language, a bond forged in the shadows of familiarity. The only words that pierced the air were those simple yet loaded. How are you doing? How are you holding up? Simple, unremarkable hellos. On the surface, everything appeared to be perfectly secure. It was clear that she recognized the figure waiting by the car, a familiarity that hinted at a deeper connection. In the chilling hours of the early morning, investigators uncovered that her last text message, a haunting farewell, was dispatched at precisely 2:58 a.m., directed to none other than Ayoola Ajayi. Just 1 minute later, her phone went dark, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. In a matter of moments, the detectives honed in on Ayoola, their instincts guiding them toward the truth lurking in the shadows. Authorities revealed that a seemingly innocuous Instagram follow from Mackenzie's account just yesterday became a crucial clue, guiding them straight to this residence. In a twist of fate, the homeowner has now turned the property into an Airbnb. In the unfolding drama of this case, several search warrants were executed, with one notably targeting this home just last night. Today, silence reigns as no one responds. As the clock approached 1 p.m., a contingent of Salt Lake City police officers returned to the scene, their eyes scanning the surroundings through what appeared to be binoculars fixated on the home. Yet, despite their intense scrutiny, they refrained from stepping inside. A number of them were seen canvassing the neighborhood, their presence lingering in the shadows of the backyard. One can observe the very spots where law enforcement meticulously excavated the ground. As the night unfolded, our detectives meticulously gathered a trove of evidence.
Detectives collected multiple items of evidence throughout the night that are in the process of being tested and analyzed. This will take some time.
Each piece now undergoing rigorous testing and analysis, unraveling the threads of a complex mystery. Patience is a virtue, and this journey is no exception. It will require time, perhaps more than we anticipate. There was something unsettling about his narrative. The pieces simply didn't fit together. He staunchly denied any connection to Mackenzie, yet the phone records painted a starkly contrasting narrative. On the fateful day of June 26th, law enforcement executed a warrant, plunging into a meticulous search of Ajayi's residence. They summoned the dogs, assembled the forensics teams, and deployed the excavation equipment, each tool a harbinger of the secrets buried beneath the surface. The discovery turned the investigation on its head, transforming what began as a search for a missing person into a chilling descent into something far more sinister. It was a seemingly ordinary day when Ajayi's neighbor stumbled upon an unsettling sight. Strange, charred remnants had mysteriously materialized in her garden, raising the hairs on the back of her neck. She reached out to the authorities, and soon they arrived at her property. Behind Ajayi's garage, the police stumbled upon a freshly dug patch of earth. It didn't take long for that soil to yield evidence that no one ever wished to discover. Among the grim findings were human tissue, bone fragments, charred fabric, and something far more unsettling, what seemed to be a portion of a human scalp, with hair still clinging to it. In a chilling turn of events, authorities uncovered the charred remnants of Mackenzie's personal belongings scattered across the property. Among the chilling discoveries was her student ID, a haunting reminder of her presence. They also unearthed a red gas can, its sinister implications lingering in the air. The chilling discovery made in the back garden was confirmed through tests. The remains belonged to none other than Mackenzie Luerick. Here lies the suspect's backyard, a seemingly ordinary space that may hold secrets waiting to be uncovered. It was in this very spot that the police, driven by a relentless pursuit of truth, excavated numerous holes in the earth, each one a testament to the secrets buried beneath the surface. It was in this very location that investigators uncovered the grim remnants of charred human tissue, a haunting match to Mackenzie's DNA. Amidst the ashes, investigators uncovered personal belongings that once belonged to Mackenzie, now charred remnants of a life that had been. The evidence spoke volumes, hinting at a darker narrative lurking just beneath the surface. It was Chief Brown who bore the heavy burden of delivering the devastating news to Mackenzie's parents. It was a moment steeped in tension, a phone call that weighed heavily on my heart, one of the most challenging I had ever faced. Greg and his wife Diana found themselves engulfed in a wave of devastation and heartbreak upon receiving this news. Inside Ajayi's car lingered the unmistakable scent of gasoline, a telltale sign that something sinister was afoot. Yet, despite the trove of discoveries they had unearthed, crucial fragments of evidence remained conspicuously absent. Captured in chilling detail, this is the body cam footage documenting the arrest of Ajayi.
Stand up real quick. We're just gonna. Oh, get you up. Are you arresting me or something? No. Stand up. Then why you're gonna be detained for a little bit. You're being detained, but just for a second, okay? I gotta put you in handcuffs just while we're driving. Per policy, we're just gonna go talk to detectives for a little bit. Why are you detaining me?
On July 20, as the walls closed in and the weight of forensic evidence bore down upon him, Ayoola Ajayi made a move that would shock everyone. With the guidance of his attorney, he directed the police to their next point of interest. In the heart of Salt Lake City's Fair Park neighborhood, Ayoola's home stood, a silent witness to the unfolding drama of everyday life. At first glance, it appeared to be just another ordinary suburban rental, blending seamlessly into the neighborhood's facade. In the shadows of the mundane, a gray square structure looms, its silence heavy with untold stories. Yet, lurking within, a sinister force lay in wait, poised to unleash chaos. Once he lured Mackenzie into the confines of his lair, he secured her wrists with a sinister combination of zip ties and rope, ensuring her helplessness. He closed his hands around her throat, tightening his grip with a chilling determination. She pleaded with him to cease his actions. She put up a struggle, but he pressed on relentlessly. In a chilling turn of events, he turned her onto her stomach, employing a belt as a sinister tool in his brutal assault. He tugged at it relentlessly, sealing her fate and marking the end of her time on this earth. Ajayi remained silent, refusing to reach out for assistance. In the chilling aftermath, one could sense an unsettling absence of remorse, as if the weight of their actions had not even grazed their conscience. Panic? That too was conspicuously absent, leaving behind a haunting calm in the face of chaos. This was his desire, the culmination of his dark ambitions. And so, he set off to begin his grim task. He gathered her possessions, casting them into the murky depths of the Jordan River, before retreating to his backyard where he hastily excavated a shallow grave to conceal her lifeless form. The following day, he made his way back to the grave, but this time, he came armed with gasoline. Neighbors would later remember the odor, heavy and reminiscent of something sinister, a chemical stench that lingered in the air. One of them caught sight of him looming over a fire pit, a red gas can gripped tightly in his hand, the flickering flames casting an eerie glow on his face. It was the very gas can that authorities would eventually discover tucked away in his vehicle. Receipts revealed that he acquired this can mere hours after Mackenzie disappeared into thin air. Logan Canyon, with its serpentine roads and picturesque trails, holds secrets in its shadows, inviting the curious to explore its depths. It's a place shrouded in tranquility, where souls seek refuge from the chaos of the world. Here, they inhale the crisp air, traverse winding trails, and embark on a journey of restoration. On that fateful day, July 3rd, 2019, a group of determined searchers ventured into the depths of Logan Canyon, guided by the chilling directions provided by Ajayi. They journeyed approximately 85 miles north of Salt Lake City, where, in a secluded wooded clearing just off a dirt road, they unearthed yet another shallow grave. It lay shrouded in the shadows, obscured by the dense canopy of trees and tangled underbrush. As the investigation deepened, they unearthed further evidence of his dark deeds-more charred remains, hidden away for a second time, whispering secrets of a sinister past. The zip ties gripped her wrists tightly, binding her arms cruelly behind her back. In the dim light of the backyard, more fragments of clothing emerged, eerily reminiscent of those already discovered, whispering secrets of a past long buried. It was evident that Mackenzie had been relocated, scorched once more, and ultimately abandoned to rot in quietude. Phone records revealed that Ajayi was precisely at that location on June 25. It was a day shrouded in tension, the calm before the storm, just one day before the police would come knocking on his door for the very first time. In a moment of sheer panic, he chose not to confess. Instead, he took the chilling step of exhuming her remains and embarking on a harrowing journey, driving nearly 90 miles north to conceal her body once more. What Ajayi failed to comprehend was that each mile etched a path behind him. His digital footprint loomed large, a silent witness to his every move. Surveillance footage captured his every misstep, while gas receipts told a tale of deceit. The web of lies he spun was unraveling, fraying at the edges faster than he could bury the truth beneath layers of falsehood. Mackenzie was discovered, a revelation that sent ripples through the community. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the case unfolded before the judge and jury. This morning, I reached out to Mackenzie's family, another heartbreaking conversation in a series of tragic events. Despite their overwhelming grief, there remains a flicker of hope that this journey may lead them toward closure and justice for Mackenzie. At this moment, we will hear a statement from the Luke family, delivered by Mackenzie's uncle. In a heartfelt statement, the Luke family extends their sincere thanks to the Salt Lake City Police Department and the myriad of agencies that joined forces in this investigation. They also acknowledge the invaluable contributions of those who stepped forward with tips, playing a crucial role in the unfolding of this case. They express deep gratitude to her community, her friends, and countless others across the nation who have rallied behind this investigation. The family has chosen to remain silent, refusing to entertain any questions, while new interviews loom on the horizon. For those seeking answers, the Salt Lake City Police Department stands ready to receive your inquiries. Once more, we urge everyone to honor the privacy of Mackenzie's family and friends during this sensitive time. The Salt Lake City Police Department will handle all media inquiries and statements on behalf of the family. Gratitude is a powerful sentiment, one that lingers in the shadows of our interactions. On October 7th, 2020, Ayoola Ajayi faced a judge, his fate hanging in the balance as he uttered the word guilty. Guilty of aggravated murder, guilty of desecrating a human body. He confessed to it all, laying bare the darkness within. But that wasn't the end of his admissions. He also acknowledged his violation of another woman, a stranger he had encountered on a dating app back in 2018. The chilling details of his actions would haunt the courtroom, echoing the grim reality of his crimes. It was the haunting tale of Mackenzie that compelled her to step into the light, driven by a need to share her own truth. The evidence stacked against him was a sensation that engulfed the senses, yet it transcended mere physical evidence. Every twist and turn of his past led inexorably to this fateful moment. The unsettling plan had been set in motion long before Mackenzie ever stepped onto that plane. This was premeditation taken to an extreme, a chilling calculation that reveals the depths of the mind at work. In a twist of fate, prosecutors weighed the grim option of the death penalty, but with Ajayi's guilty plea, he managed to sidestep that ultimate consequence. In a chilling twist of fate,
this trial is a culmination of decisions made by one person, the defendant. Those decisions have forever altered the futures of 3 families, and of you also, Mackenzie.
Mackenzie's family found themselves spared the torment of a protracted trial, a small mercy in the wake of unimaginable loss. The perpetrator, clad in an orange jumpsuit, slumped in his seat in the courtroom, his head bowed as he delivered an apology that the district attorney would later deem utterly insincere.
The Luick family would like to express their gratitude for the effort put forth by the Salt Lake City Police Department and all partnering agencies that assisted, as well as all of the people.
My daughter, Mackenzie Luick, was a remarkable young woman, full of promise and potential, her father recounted with a heavy heart. She will forever remain a fleeting shadow, a life that never had the chance to unfold its full potential. The courtroom echoed with the voice of her cousin, a witness drawn into the unfolding drama. What unfolds here is a chilling reality, one from which there is no escape. On the fateful day of October 23, 2020, the courtroom was tense as thread. District Judge Vernice Trees stepped forward to deliver the sentence. Ayoola Ajayi was destined to spend the remainder of his days behind bars. The door to freedom had been firmly shut, with no glimmer of hope for parole in sight. In a chilling twist, she received an additional 5 years for the heinous act of desecrating Mackenzie's body. In the dimly lit courtroom, Ajayi took the stand, his words measured and deliberate, leaving an air of tension hanging in the room. He uttered an apology, a desperate plea for understanding, but the chilling truth was, no one believed him. Neither the district attorney, nor Mackenzie's family, nor the friends who had long awaited justice for more than a year. Ultimately, the haunting question of why remained shrouded in mystery, eluding any definitive answer. Ajayi, a figure shrouded in mystery, offered no clear motive for his actions. The prosecutor speculated that perhaps it was merely a desire to experience the thrill of a dark fantasy. There was no confrontation, no prior animosity between him and his victim. Yet, beneath the surface, a meticulous plan had been crafted and executed. For a fleeting moment, he reveled in the illusion of having escaped justice. But Mackenzie's life, like a thread unraveling, left behind traces that would ultimately unravel the truth.
Fabio Sompilation was stabbed to death in the backyard of his Woodland Hills home in 2017.
Celebrity stylist murder trial. Monica Sompilation is accused of plotting with her lover, Robert Baker, to kill her husband for the insurance money. A third man, Christopher Austin, was also enlisted to help carry
the death of a well-known hairstylist. A Los Angeles mother is set to go on trial next month for conspiring to kill her husband, celebrity hairstylist Fabio Sompilation. This was back in 2017.
It was January 2017. In Angelus's shadow, a midday chill turned into a nightmare for a family. A 16-year-old girl found her bloodied father lying over a pool chair. He was stabbed to death. He was stabbed to death. At 49, celebrity hairstylist Fabio Sompilation won the spotlight, leaving a legacy that would captivate many. He lived in luxury with his 20-year-old bride, Monica, in Tinseltown. Their luxurious property, with a sparkling pool and a Porsche in the driveway, appeared peaceful and unaffected by violence, whether you liked it or not.
I've traveled the world and I've been so fortunate. I don't deserve any of this.
Carnage was coming. 2 men disappeared into the night following a series of local robberies, leaving a murderous scene. Tragically, Fabio's Porsche vanished into thin air. This fairy tale ending would be a nightmare. Behind the scenes, a frightening truth was emerging. Chilling secrets surfaced after a thorough investigation and a riveting trial. An adult film star becomes entangled in a web of avarice that threatens to destroy everything she loves in a world of encrypted secrets. The Decoder unravels Monica and Fabio Sementilli's complex story. Woodland Hills is Los Angeles' crown gem of prosperity, where wealth whispers through the palm trees, and luxury is a way of life. Fabio's life required it. Father, he had a successful career. In pursuit of a styling profession, he left De La Salle College High School in Canada a year early at 17. He got his hairdressing license at 19 in 1987, demonstrating his determination as an Italian immigrant starting over. Sister and brother bonded while building a salon that would be a sanctuary in the dimly lit basement. His unspoken thanks for her unfailing support in a cruel world was deep. 2 years before his death, he gave a disturbing 2015 American Salon interview, to Kin. My parents taught me family values. He saw it as a passion that drove his incredible career, not just a link. Above everything else, I love my sisters and family. Triumphant. He transformed Jackie Chan, Russell Crowe, and Jennifer Lopez's hair for iconic parts in blockbuster films as a famous competitive hairstylist and salon owner. After joining Wella Canada in 2007, Fabio became North American Professional Division Creative Director in 2010. Coty Professional Beauty's education manager oversees 500 personnel and studios in Los Angeles, New York, and Toronto. Mindset matters, not age. He reached great heights, but his greatest legacy was his incisive wit and genuine generosity as a mentor to ambitious people. I wonder, what legacy will I leave behind? While I sit in the backyard, I realize that my relationships and delight will define my legacy. It was a nightmare because I spoke the truth. Recall these after his death. Confidence that the time will arrive early. On the terrible 23rd of 2017, 49 appeared. 2 children and a son from previous relationships. Scenario beyond her wildest evil fantasies. In the shadow of her father's hard work ethic, she entered an Italian sandwich restaurant for an interview, where fresh bread and flavorful meats mixed with the aspirations of a new beginning. An instinctual impulse to escape drove me to flee quickly. Does that disturb the story? Indeed, it may have been. Mom sent me an urgent message. I needed my prescription glasses. Monica shrewdly advised Isabella to find her glasses before returning home, as if they were the answer to a bigger riddle. Thus, she returned home later than usual, long after, in shadows. The delay loomed as a sign of calamity. However, her beloved father was irreparable. The day's events haunted her as she returned home around 4:15 p.m. After her father's Porsche vanished from the garage, a disturbing mystery remained. It started with a chilling sign of chaos, emerging from garage shadows. A touch of danger in the shadows started it all. The key code opened the garage, and I entered the kitchen, where secrets lurked. So, you met your dad first? Wide windows let the outside world inside the kitchen. Upon opening the door, I saw him lurking outside, a shadow in the dim light. When did you notice his attack signs? The kitchen was a bloody scene that presented a terrifying story of violence. As I entered, I was uneasy by the unpleasant sight of stains on the floor, walls with signs of struggle, and a door that spoke secrets of what had happened. Once a beautiful poolside villa, it was now a crime scene. A terrifying thing occurred in her father's life. Isa called 911 in despair, leaving everything behind. She spoke to the operator at 16 with a trembling voice, fearful. Her mother, Monica, entered the backyard while she spoke on the phone. a regular moment that would become much more complicated. She arrived minutes too late to save Isabella's Fabio. When 5 p.m. arrived, sirens wailed, signaling paramedics. Death was ordered without hesitation. He was brutally stabbed in the face, neck, and torso. This felt like a major invasion. It fit the Sementilles' wealthy and privileged lifestyle. What wealthy Sementilles might do. Fear and worry followed the knock-knock burglars into Los Angeles' upscale communities in 2017. Alarmingly, investigators found video footage of two hooded figures running inside a neighbor's house, supporting the claim. In a shocking turn, the Sementilles' residence, with its high-tech security system, hid secrets from authorities. The hard drive was gone when they came to back it up, ruining their hopes of finding a treasure trove of film to illuminate their investigation. The thieves stole it, chilling the scene. Monica faced intense police scrutiny, made more unsettling by the lack of evidence. She described her and Fabio's typical day at home before going to Target at 3:30 p.m. He lived to tell. In 1 hour and 20 minutes, a love celebration turned grim. A twist of fate, stroke of luck, or coincidence saved her that moment. Life insurance is a safety net for many families. It may not be alarming, but cops consider it a murder motivation. Monica wouldn't let Fabio escape once. The cops notice Monica's dry eyes throughout the hard questioning, which creates suspicion. After a tragedy, people react in many ways, demonstrating the diversity of human feeling in shock and sorrow. After her husband's terrible murder, she struggled with grief only she could understand. Her afternoon stroll was chillingly recorded by the neighbor's CCTV. Her pickup truck leaves home on a secretive expedition. Jessica left for her mother-arranged babysitting job at 3:47 p.m. She had no idea that this simple activity would become evil. At 4, Fabio's beautiful black Porsche drove away from the house at 5:03 p.m., as chaotic as the murder that would scar the neighborhood forever. The automobile originally owned by Fabio Sementilli is now disappearing, leaving unsolved concerns. Isabella's car rolled into the driveway at 4:54 p.m., a minute late, starting an unremarkable evening that would soon become more exciting. Isabella drove her stunning red Fiat, which would shortly silently witness the event. Mystery and appeal surround my girl, who captivates the heart and intellect and draws you into her realm. Accelerated her father's terrible death by minutes. Monica entered again at 5:03 p.m. Fortune was too generous. What would make a typical thief think a house would be practically empty in the midday sun? What fateful twist brought the family back seconds later? Another problem with the burglary theory. Fabio died holding a 80 Rolex, a symbol of luxury permanently linked to his death. His daughter found him deceased with a watch on his wrist. Who stole the Porsche and house DVR but left the Rolex? The investigators knew that a simple case was actually a labyrinth of intrigue. The crime scene was meticulously examined inch by inch to find one clue. The blood collected at the scene did not match Fabio or Sementilli's DNA, raising suspicions about the perpetrator's identity. In a shocking twist, Robert Baker had DNA keys. Robert, 54, taught racquetball at a fitness center near the Sementilles. Born in Germany, he moved to the U.S. at 3 and has lived there ever since. Registering as a sex offender sealed his fate, encoding his DNA in the system and eternally linking him to his prior crimes. His 1,993 conviction for indecent and immoral behavior with his stepdaughter shook the courtroom. His conviction ensured his removal as Army Staff Sergeant. After his release, he mentored Hollywood and sports elites in Los Angeles. Unlike most, he lived in tight accommodations with a roommate and struggled to pay for necessities. He did this through adult flicks. He probably killed Fabio for money. Robert knew Sementilles well. LA Fitness, where he worked out daily, was their destination. 6 days after Fabio's unexpected death on January 29, he was invited to his wake. In the haunting aftermath, his wake photos show a bandaged finger, a quiet monument to his hidden suffering. Could the murder scene blood be from this cut? Robert Baker, a prominent murder suspect, was the police's target. In an apparently benign conversation, they asked Monica about Robert and other guests to their home that fateful February. He was a shadow, his name flowing through her fingers like sand. Rob's DNA in the residence was unproven, she said. Rob's DNA in the house was an injustice, she said. The family never met him, but evidence implies he killed Fabio. Monica waited in the faint light, her heart beating for the life-changing news. She kept contacting the police, demanding leads and payments, despite her claim that Fabio had no insurance. She was caught between paradoxes. That fateful night as shadows approached and anguish clouded the air. Luigi, Fabio's son from his first marriage, was contacted by the family to share the tragic news. He contacted his neighbor Deborah, who was there. Her voice was urgent. Deborah reached out. Monica panicked over money. She worried about poverty, so Deborah promised to get them the money they needed. Monica was obsessed with money. She convinced Luigi that his father's death would provide him immediate relief. She started with life insurance money. She guarantees payment. A shocking number of life insurance payouts were made. Despite hesitation, the message was conveyed. He was blissfully unaware. After his father's horrible death, his mind was filled with grief and bewilderment, leaving no room for money. It completely fascinated Monica. It happened in the shadows before Fabio's death. He died tragically before 50. Monica methodically arranged a celebration golf holiday for herself and her friends, full of anticipation. They never reached the course, by chance. Her buddies paid back the debt. Was Monica paid for this trip? Indeed. Remember the cost? The price was probably around 30. Everyone? The answer is yes. Was that excursion you took? Was the defendant able to pay? In despair, it may have slid through her fingers and disappeared into her misery. Perhaps she intentionally hoarded the money. After Luigi arrived from Canada, she opened the life insurance documentation, revealing a labyrinth of secrets. She looked down, smiling, and traced the paper with her fingertips. Who got the most money? Monica suspected. This created two perspectives. DNA evidence linked Rob Baker to the terrifying murder scene and the family. After her wealthy husband died, Monica became wealthy. Rob was at a crossroads, and she determined his life. Discovering the link was crucial. Opportunity arose briefly. The link discovered was crucial. Monica's October 1972 birth in Toronto started a narrative. Fabio met his sister at the salon they operated in 1997, a moment that would change their lives. What started as a normal client makeup artist, connection became much more complex and intriguing. After marrying Luigi's mother, Fabio had to break up in 1995. Monica symbolized Fabio's new beginning, hope, and her own triumph after 2 years of seclusion. As his career grew, so did his fame. His eerie beauty enchanted her, entangling her in their shared life. In 2011, a family left Toronto for Los Angeles with their 2 daughters. Monica worked 2 part-time jobs, yet managed the family's money and daily activities. Behind the glamour of their luxurious estate, a small army of housekeepers, gardeners, and pool keepers labored tirelessly, each with their own secrets and stories. Their life was privileged. Monica seizes her chance. Family vacations to Hawaii, Cabo, and St. Thomas were common. These trips were a tempting reward for Fabio's job and a family benefit. Monica was a passenger in a world of luxury. Was it too much? Wealth is said to not buy happiness. Monica was perhaps involved. In the shadows of convenience, she grew to hate Fabio. She joined LA Fitness Canoga Park's racquetball league in 2015, where she discovered strong rivalry and unexpected relationships. She sought the help of Matt Nurse, a rigorous personal trainer, to alter her body and make new friends. Matt was more than a trainer to her, he was part of her journey. After she downloaded his social media photographs, he was invited to drinks, setting the groundwork for a more complicated encounter. She told Matt her heart after he rejected her. She showed her displeasure in her marriage when the subject came to her children. Her suspicions of his cheating were strong. What could stop someone from divorcing? What did she tell you? Why waste 20 years? Why spend 2 decades in a life of luxury when she may find happiness elsewhere? Matt betrayed her, so she sought comfort in other gym males, particularly Robert Baker. In mid-December 2015, she asked him for racquetball lessons. Digital seduction has begun with charming email exchanges. After scheduling class, he gave her his number, a seemingly benign move that started a chain of events no one could have predicted. The lesson worked. Betrayal soon entered their life. Despite her police statement, Monica returned him to the Cementilli, leaving many questioning her motives. Monica and Fabio's 17-year-old daughter Jessica saw him, changing everything. I was lured to mascara in my mother's bathroom, a seemingly harmless act that promised metamorphosis. I forgot, but Rob was in her bed when I left. She said he rarely drinks. An event that would make headlines was arranged last night. Sheila, her friend, may have visited. Alcohol is rare for him. Drunk heavily that night. He fell asleep, letting the night consume him. No charming small cottage was discovered. More beds were available. Rob stayed with Monica, a disappointing account. Rob and Monica's secret was entangled in closeness and hidden desires for months. From January 2016 to January 2017, she called Rob approximately 90 times, each call resonating with obsession. His preoccupation with dialing her number over 17 times became dark and frightening. They clearly loved each other. Monica stayed married while Fabio worked, unaware of their secrets. With time, the marriage began to dissolve, revealing an unsettling tension. Rob would testify, hoping to reveal the truth. Are you hiding your Monica Cementilli affair? I did. Did she want it? Indeed. How did you hide it? Every way possible. They sent encrypted Viber messages. Did they want to hide her affair from her husband for a deeper reason, or just to look good? Rob strongly denied Monica's role in her husband's death. Would she leave her marriage for you? Leave her husband for you? She hesitated, her determination faltering as we carefully discussed the matter. Hard to imagine somebody would go so low. Did it affect your decision to kill him? I killed him for her in Twisted Devotion. Hollywood's backstreets host a film about infidelity and a lover's jealously set against gloomy scenery. Monica became involved with a man who gave her goosebumps in the shadows of betrayal. Though unaware, her spouse will soon suffer the consequences of her recklessness. Rob maintained his post. This murder is linked, forming a terrifying web. Weapons were painted in disorder, highlighting the stress. Thought a knife would be better. His name was Christopher Austin. 2 boys formed an unshakable relationship in rural North Carolina. He and Rob, inseparable in childhood, stayed pals after Rob moved to LA. And Chris faced Alaska's harsh terrain. Rob chose Chris as his murder partner with chilling preference. He got Chris's Alaskan trip ticket for his complex plan. He picked up Chris at the airport on January 20, laying the stage for what would follow. Chris fell asleep in the dim room as shadows danced over the walls. He had no idea that Rob was nearby with a knife in his hand, offering it with a terrifying composure that would haunt the night. Finding the right opportunity was crucial. Rob said he never asked Monica about Fabio's location, when he was alone, or how to enter that forbidden zone. He interpreted her texts in the shadows of their talk. Rob left Chris on this lonely road, expecting him to kill Fabio. Chris knew that the text, "How are you doing, babe?" meant it was time to act. Rob knew this bloodbath couldn't be outsourced. He knew he had to do it. With Chris watching for informants in the shadows, the chance returned January 23. Rob claims he casually asked Monica about Fabio's behavior during their racquetball game that day, which she omitted in her police interview later that evening. Rob revealed the terrifying truth. Fabio was home alone, vulnerable to the threat. A mile from the house, where Chris lurked, his car loomed. To avoid cameras, they rushed approaching the house in sweatshirts with knives in their hands. Rob searched the unknown for Fabio while Chris stood in the shadows, his breath evident in the frigid air. He found the eerie scene on the back patio near the pool. He stands, stunned, incredulous. Nothing more, nothing less. I caught his attention, and he spun around with a start. In the darkness, his anguished wail broke the silence. His grip on my chest and sweatshirt sent a chill down my spine. One deliberate cut set the stage for what was to come. The information slipped from me. Fabio resisted the brutal attack. He towered over Rob, but Rob made a fatal mistake. How many times did you cut Fabio? The nighttime shadow of uncertainty makes one wonder. Each layer I cut revealed more than the surface. I maneuvered till he faltered and loosened his grip. Rob stabbed Fabio, cementing a fate that would haunt them forever. He diligently covered his tracks, leaving no trace. He and Chris drove away in the Porsche at night, its engine humming like a tiger. They dumped it again that night under cover of darkness to eliminate any evidence. It was unsettling to see the area stained in blood. Same blood as Rob. This heinous crime got Rob convicted. Was his statement truthful? Did only he and Chris die? Was Monica honestly unaware? She and Rob sent 95 encrypted Viber messages on Fabio's murder day. Rob deleted the app and its data that fateful night to hide their secrets in their writings. The cops wanted her phone passcode, which may unlock digital secrets, during a thrilling investigation. She said she forgot. Monica remained steadfast, while others may be incredulous. She lied because Rob's birthday held the passcode. Her feelings for him were obvious, a secret confession. Monica Baker replaced Monica Cementilli on stage, changing the story of their interwoven lives. She said Baker was easy to say. Her frightening goal was to buy Fabio a beautiful Las Vegas mansion with his life insurance money.
Was there a central issue that the defendant would bring up with you on a regular basis?
Just that the insurance money wasn't coming in.
The horrifying death of Fabio sparked a chain reaction that kept Monica and Rob under surveillance. On February 21, the police followed them to a dimly lit bar. A kiss unfolded outside under the night's watchful gaze, a moment frozen in time that hinted at secrets to come. She had no tears or shows of mourning after her husband's violent murder a month earlier. The day she met Rob in Target was eternally engraved in her memory, wrapped in tragedy. They chatted in the parking lot, presumably innocently to confirm her alibi. He slid away, his evil intentions heavy as he drove off to perform the unspeakable. Watching her phone, she nervously monitored her home security while waiting for word on the horrible conduct she plotted with her accomplice, according to shop surveillance. Rob and Monica were handcuffed in August's heat, changing their destiny. Rob and Monica were handcuffed in August's heat, changing their lives forever. They were arrested together, a sign of their closeness. The cops were obsessed with solving the crime and wanted to listen in on their chats. Even in prison, they resembled Bonnie and Clyde. They struggled to escape desperately. Their love transcended their dismal reality as the pair talked passionately in the jail. Rob stated that Monica was blissfully oblivious that he had killed her husband, even after their arrest. It was incredible. A shocking twist claimed Monica hurt Rob's hand during a heated racquetball match. She wiped away his blood with her towel, leaving traces throughout her home. In a frightening twist, Fabio's stolen Porsche's blood remains unexplained. Each day revealed our reality with terrifying clarity. In June 2016, investigators began assembling a terrifying story. After Monica sent Rob her home security system login credentials, they assumed she told him the DVR position. This email had major ramifications for their study. He methodically found and destroyed it on the murder day to ensure the evidence disappeared. Monica planned the horrible murder of her husband. Detectives searched the neighbor's CCTV footage for Rob's partner, the second man in the hoodie, for 2 months. Rob's Texas friend Al Birdsong was soon suspicious. When Chris Austin appeared with a perfect alibi in October 2017, many wondered what was really going on. Chris stumbled when they arrived after talking to Rob on the phone and reviewing the financial data. In a shocking turn of events, he agreed to testify against Rob and Monica in exchange for confessing to second-degree murder with a knife. Baker's promise of profit enticed many into his ambition. When the summons came, I couldn't descend sooner. Rob asked Chris to return from Alaska's frigid expanse in December 2016. Rob suggested that this would improve their finances and include Monica and Fabio in the drama. This horrific act was driven by money, not jealousy. Financial pressure and Monica's developing dislike for her spouse. In Africa, where the sun shines and the dirt is parched, snow seems unlikely. Winter doesn't touch the continent's searing deserts and lush savannas. The lack of snow suggests a climate that defies the cold. Chris listened to every secret Rob shared. I'll say she hates him and is leaving. She secretly wants him gone. Al Birdsong, Rob's erstwhile accomplice, shares his terrible story. Chris claimed to have witnessed the horrifying murder chat, exposing a 4-person conspiracy. Conversation has started. Is it obvious her husband will die? Indeed. Who asked? Indeed. Who could it be? Monica yearned.
We continue to believe that Monica had nothing to do with her husband's murder, and we will pursue every legal avenue to obtain her eventual exoneration.
The wife wanted it. I'm sorry. Chris learned from Rob that Monica hated her abusive husband, turned back after killing. Chris then discovered the chilling truth. She wanted the insurance money. Chris doubted Rob's horrific murder story. Chris denied Rob's claim that Fabio saw him and struggled for survival. Chris told the cops that Rob had been communicating with Monica all day, planning the murder. Can law enforcement tap cell phones? She Googled weeks after the murder. Her guilt gnawed at her conscience as she desperately needed money. The cops stopped the insurance company from paying her. She planned to escape with her children, break the security system, and tell Rob her husband's location without compensation in a desperate effort for freedom. Chris's guilty plea started a chain reaction that ruined countless lives. Rob admitted his guilt but shielded Monica from the consequences, a frightening twist. He claimed to be protecting her, while she was blissfully ignorant. His testimony protected her in the convoluted courtroom drama. With a life sentence and no possibility of escape,
the jury in the above entitled action find the defendant Monica Sompilation guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A. A felony is charged in count 1 of the indictment.
he had nothing to lose. She felt his apathy hurt more than ever in that harsh reality. He refused to lie on the stand despite the prosecution's claims that he could have saved her. 3 of 4 accomplices are already struggling with their imminent charges, while Al Birdsong faces legal ramifications. Chris and Monica wait on the cliff for the gavel to fall on their fate while Rob is imprisoned for life. An evil conspiracy threatened to kill charming professional and devoted father Fabio Simontili, tearing his family apart. The ability to bounce back after a setback reflects your character. Isabella began hairstyling in Hollywood's shadows, following her father's footsteps as they rebuilt their lives.
Was served today is the most beautiful day for our family. Our spirits are lifted. My brother can now rest in peace.
Overjoyed that she will spend the rest of her life in jail. No parole.